Chapter 1281. Since he could not get any more information from the dead creature, Su-yi simply ignored it and flew back to Jichir. Together with her, he landed in front of the 5 Yuan-Jun realm warriors. Thank you for saving our lives. The 5 of them were still in shock. After taking a few quick breaths, they bowed to Su-yi to express their gratitude. They saw everything that happened just now. The young man in front of them actually brushed past the dead creature and caused it to fall to the ground, never to get up again. The 5 of them did not understand how the young man did it, but such means were definitely much more terrifying than they imagined. In their eyes, the young man was suddenly full of mystery. In this regard, Su-yi did not explain much. He only invited them to travel together. Because there were 5 more people, Su-yi did not choose to fly this time. Instead, he ran all the way. After consuming a few medicinal pills, the 5 Yuan-Jin realm cultivators gradually recovered. Through their information, Su-yi learned that the 5 of them were rogue cultivators. After entering the ruins, they scattered in different places. However, they were not far from each other, so they soon gathered together. Out of fear of unknown places, the 5 of them traveled together. However, they inadvertently alerted the dead creature from before. After being chased for nearly an hour, they used all their strength to escape. There were originally 9 of us, but the other 4 died in the mouth of the wolf. A middle-aged man said with lingering fear, his body trembling slightly. If it were not for the dead people delaying them, they would have been killed by now. Su-yi was silent. The wolf had been dead for many years, but its power still lingered. If it were not for the loss of a hind leg, these Yuan-Jin realm warriors would have died in the wolf's mouth. I'm afraid that there are other dead creatures in this place. Another man in his 40s spoke up with a hint of fear in his voice. The others were also frightened. Coming to such a strange and inexplicable place was not like a normal secret territory. Although it was full of danger, it was also accompanied by great opportunities. But here, there was only endless death chi. Not even a blade of grass grew, let alone any benefits. Su-yi still didn't say anything. He just frowned. The road ahead was hard to predict, but they had to find a way out. They couldn't just wait here and hope that the experts outside would open the ruins and save them. Seeing that he didn't say anything, the rogue cultivators didn't say anything either. In their hearts, they felt that this young man's cultivation was very strong. Since he could already fly at such a young age, it was very likely that he came from one of the 3 first-rate forces. They wanted to know the truth, but they dared not. Next, Su-yi and Feng-chi took the lead and walked with the 5 people. All along the way, it was rather peaceful, and they didn't encounter any more inanimate objects or existences similar to the ocean of buried spirit flowers. However, the blood-red sky in the sky contrasted with the boundless brownish-black earth, making one feel an indescribable discomfort. After another hour, they encountered a few more people. Their cultivations were not too strong, with half of them being only at the origin spirit realm. Su-yi included them into the group as well. These people were not a burden to him. After all, he himself did not know where to go at this time. In this strange place, there were many people traveling together, so their courage was a little stronger. The group of people were like headless flies, wandering around the ruins in the dark. But after more than half a day, when Su-yi and company encountered a few people again, they suddenly heard a cry of surprise. Su-yi, Su-yi. Someone recognized Su-yi's identity. After all, in the plaza in 9-Star City, too many people had witnessed the scene of the Alliance Conference back then. Su-yi's impression was too deep. They couldn't forget, even if they wanted to. After learning his identity, the surrounding people had even more reverence for this young man. However, Su-yi did not care about this at all. He was more concerned about some other things. So many Origin Emperors are trapped here too. I have to think of a way to find them. Along the way, the cultivation of the martial artists he absorbed was not too strong. He was the only one at the Origin Void Realm. Su-yi felt that it was necessary to gather more powerhouses. This way, they could explore the ruins, figure out everything, and find a way to leave this place. After seeing those strange things, he no longer had the idea of taking things as they came. It had to be said that during the time in the ruins, the Origin Supreme technique in Su Yi's body often operated uncontrollably, and the speed was extremely fast. This showed that it was unusual. In the unseen world, there seemed to be something here that had an invisible connection with Su Yi. Once again, they found a strange plant that had a magical fluctuation. This time, even Su Yi could not name it. Su Yi took a cautious approach. After plundering this plant, he put it into his space bag. He could only take it out and let his big brother Merciless West see if it was valuable. A day passed by quickly. There was no rising or falling of the sun, no changing of the stars, and no night. The color of the sky did not change at all, and it was always that lifeless appearance. Everyone's team gradually grew, reaching the scale of 30 to 40 people. 2 other Origin Void Realm cultivators also joined. When everyone knew that the young man in the lead was the rumored sect master of the Bawang sect, their eyes were filled with awe. It's too slow to move like this. It's better to send people to scout the surroundings. No matter what, let's gather more people first before discussing the next step. Su Yi frowned and said to the other 2 Origin Void Realm cultivators, "That's the only way." The 2 nodded. If they did not think of a way, they did not know how long they would have to stay in this damn place. It would be best to gather a group of Origin Emperors and explore together. As soon as he thought of it, Su Yi gave instructions to the others and flew up into the sky, sweeping forward to investigate the situation. For safety's sake, he also brought Feng Qi along to avoid any accidents. Almost everyone in the Chaos region lived a life of danger. Su Yi did not feel at ease letting Feng Qi be with those people. The other 2 Origin Void Realm cultivators also flew out and returned at the agreed time. The large team followed the guidance and moved in a certain direction. It was dead silent in the ruins. If there was a living person nearby, with the eyesight of an Origin Void Realm cultivator, they would be able to see it from afar. Su Yi took Feng Qi, and flew far away. He kept searching for people, and at the same time, he was also checking if there were any more strange plants. There was no sign of life in the vast space. Countless bones were buried. Under the red sky above, it was even more eerie. They're still in the mood to fight in a place like this. W-0 not long after, Su Yi and Feng Qi saw 2 figures again. They were moving around and fighting each other. Blood splattered everywhere. It was unknown if it was a meeting of enemies or if it was because of wealth. Su Yi did not care about the 2. Since they wanted to fight to the death, he would let them decide the winner first. Chapter 1282. After a fruitless search, Su Yi prepared to return with Feng Qi. However, he suddenly saw a person flying in the air at an extremely fast speed. That person had obviously noticed them and was heading in their direction. A moment later, Su Yi saw the person's face clearly and could not help but curl his lips slightly. Feng Qi's beautiful eyes also lit up. "It's the elder from Mysterious Frost Sect," Feng Qi said. Su Yi did not say anything and watched as the person quickly arrived before him. "Elder Gao, I didn't expect you to be here too," Su Yi said with a smile. The elder in front of him revealed a bitter smile. He first looked at Feng Qi, then fixed his gaze on Su Yi. He then cupped his fist solemnly and said, "This time, you don't have to call me little brother Feng Yan. You should call me Sectmaster Su. This old one greets you." Gao Can's expression was a little strange. It was mixed with helplessness and fear at the same time. After Little Handsome, Su revealed his true identity. Everyone from Mysterious Frost Sect naturally knew that the young man who had been traveling with them for a long time was the Bawang Sect's Sectmaster, Su Yi, in disguise. Gao Can had never been to the Alliance Conference and had never seen Su Yi's true face. However, seeing Feng Qi now was not difficult to guess. "Elder Gao, you're too kind. It's really not easy to meet an acquaintance in this godforsaken place." Su Yi had a good impression of the people from Mysterious Frost Sect, especially Niu Qingshan. Back when they were attacked by the Blue Fire Sect, Niu Qingshan had asked Su Yi to find a chance to leave with Feng Qi. "This place is really strange. I was attacked by a dead thing on the way and even suffered some injuries. I wonder if Sect Master Su has discovered anything after such a long time? Gao Tsang asked. Su Yi saw that his left arm was straight and drooping. It seemed that his arm bone was injured. However, his robe was still intact. It was obvious that he had changed. It seemed that the dead thing that Gao Tsang encountered was not simple. It actually injured an Origin Emperor. I don't have any good ideas now. I gathered many people along the way. I hope to meet more powerhouses and continue exploring together. Su Yi's eyes flickered as he spoke. I also met some people along the way. However, their cultivation bases were not high enough, so I ignored them, Gao Tsang continued. Su Yi nodded in understanding. If it weren't for the need of companionship, he wouldn't be willing to mix with those rogue cultivators and people from small forces. Let's go take a look at the situation first. I wonder if the other two sides have discovered anything. Su Yi explained his experience to Gao Tsang before the three of them returned together. The addition of an Origin Emperor made Su Yi heave a sigh of relief. Looking at it this way, even though there were dead things in the ruins, there were definitely not many of them. It could not be considered too dangerous. The only thing that lingered in everyone's hearts was the confusion of the road ahead. After a long time, Su Yi finally returned to the previous team. What surprised him was that one of the other two Origin Void Stage cultivators had also discovered something. We also discovered a team not far away. There are already over 20 people. There's also an Origin Void Stage cultivator among them. I told them to gather here, the Origin Void Stage cultivator said. It turned out that there were also people who had gathered some powerhouses. In the strange ruins, everyone's future was uncertain. They actually formed a sizable group during this period of time. Of course, Su Yi knew that this group did not have much cohesion. Once there was a change, they would disperse even faster. What everyone wanted now was just to walk out of here alive. Sect Master Su. At this time, the other Origin Void Stage cultivator walked to Su Yi's side and quietly whispered to him, "Bringing these useless people will undoubtedly slow us down. Why don't?" As he spoke, he glanced at the large group of figures on the other side. Su Yi shook his head and said, "For the time being, let's move together. The bigger the target, the more attention it will attract. Let's gather a group of true powerhouses first." The true powerhouses that Su Yi mentioned were at least Origin Void Stage cultivators who could fly. Hearing him say so, the Origin Void Stage cultivator did not say much. In the Chaos region, this young man's prestige was much stronger than his. Su Yi turned around and said to the crowd in a clear voice, "If everyone wants to leave this place alive, then use your strength. Those who have reached the Origin Void Stage, try to fly as high as possible and find others to gather more powerhouses." After hearing his words, many people in the crowd immediately responded. Then, many Origin Void Stage cultivators really did fly into the sky one after another and glided around. Origin Void Stage cultivators could transform their Yuan Qi and fly into the sky, but they could not fly for long periods of time. The consumption of Yuan Qi was also huge, but this way, the target would be bigger. This was the effect that Su Yi wanted. As for leaving these people behind and leading a few Origin Void Stage cultivators and Elder Gao Tsang alone, Su Yi did not plan to do so for the time being. Everything could only be decided after the situation. Everyone did not stay idle. Su Yi, Gao Tsang, and the other two Origin Void Stage cultivators rested for a while before embarking on the journey to gather information again. Time passed quickly, and the group grew quickly as well. From a few dozen people at the beginning, it slowly grew to hundreds. However, there were still only a few powerhouses above the Origin Void Stage. Is there only a dead land here and nothing else? Su Yi muttered to himself. After searching for a few days, all he could see was a barren wasteland. Such a situation made his heart heavy. Su Yi, don't worry. There will be a way. Update the latest unspecified currency fast on PG0R Feng Qi, or seemed to have seen through Su Yi's thoughts and comforted him. Su Yi smiled and said softly, "I'm not too anxious. Although this place is strange, it's not too dangerous. Let's take it slow. In fact, What Sui wanted to know the most was why the Origin Supreme technique would act strangely here. After 3 years of tempering in the barbaric demon forest, coupled with the recent years of life and death, Sui did not feel afraid in this place. A few more days passed, and the number of people in the group expanded to more than 1,000. At this time, Sui finally did not want to stay with the other cultivators. After discussing with a dozen Origin Emperors and Origin Void Stage cultivators, everyone left the group. "Sir, please take us with you." "Sir, you can't leave." Knowing that Sui and the others were leaving, many rogue cultivators and people from small forces immediately begged. Without the protection of these powerhouses, their future was unknown, and everyone's hearts were covered with a layer of shadow. "Find a place to set up camp. If you find a way out, I will come to you when I have the chance," Sui said, but he didn't make any promises. Instead, he left. Gaotsong also brought 2 people with him. They were the people from Mysterious Frost Sect. Chapter 1283. The group randomly chose a direction, not knowing where to go. Along the way, they met a few more people, and some of them had even gathered in a rather large group. Feng Qi was a kind-hearted person. She would always remind them to meet up with the big group. Sui didn't stop her, but his frown deepened. "What's in this direction?" Sui thought to himself, full of doubts and puzzlement. Everyone followed his instructions. Sui could vaguely sense that the Origin Supreme technique in his body was becoming more and more intense as they moved in this direction. This change wasn't obvious in a short distance, but it wasn't hard to detect after a long time. It was as if there was something in the ruins that was calling out to him. Regarding this, Sui steeled his heart. No matter what, he had to go take a look first. Another day passed, and they passed through a series of raised mounts. The scenery around them began to change a little from what it was before. Sect Master Sui, have you noticed that the sky seems to have become even more blood red? Elder Gao Tsong came to Sui's side and said with a frown. Sui nodded. He had also noticed this. Not only that, but the brownish-black ground below looked even darker. Those raised mounds were taller than before, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call them small mountains. The skeletons buried below must be even larger. There's someone behind. Suddenly, someone shouted loudly. Looking back, a small that rapidly enlarged in everyone's sight, streaking across the void like lightning. Oh no, there's something dead chasing after him. Very quickly, Sui and the others saw an enormous flying beast flapping its wings in hot pursuit behind the figure, and its speed was slightly faster than the figure in front of them. Like the dead creatures Sui had seen before, the bird's body was rotten, and its feathers had long been stripped. Its corpse fluid dripped down like rain. However, just by flying with its wings, it displayed a speed that ordinary Origin Emperors couldn't reach. To save or not to save? Someone among the group asked, unable to make a decision. That dead thing must be very powerful, but with everyone's strength, it was not impossible to kill it. However, as soon as he finished speaking, everyone heard a rumbling sound nearby. Below, a mound suddenly moved, and a huge skeleton broke through the shackles of the soil, shaking off a large amount of dust, and stood up. This skeleton's body was almost completely decayed. Only the head was still attached with disgusting flesh and blood, just like a fierce tiger. The skeleton stomped on the ground with its hind legs and soared into the sky, pouncing towards Sui and the others. Dodge! Everyone was shocked. They scattered in all directions and flew into the distance. The huge skeleton soared into the sky and bit down. 2 rows of sharp teeth collided, emitting the sound of metal clashing. Then it fiercely fell to the ground and turned into pieces with a bang. This scene caused Sui and the others to be extremely shocked. Thinking about it, some corpses that hadn't completely decayed would turn into dead things and have an instinctive battle intent to attack everyone. In such a short time, the person being chased had already closed in, but the flying dead thing behind him clawed at his back first. Instantly, his entire body was torn into 2 halves, and a rain of blood dyed the sky red. An Origin Emperor died, just like that, Su Yi's eyelids twitched. The aura of that person, just now, was obviously at the initial stage of Origin Emperor Realm. Unexpectedly, he didn't even have the strength to resist and was killed. Such a situation caused all the experts to be extremely shocked. Screech. For no reason, they all heard a sharp bird cry, penetrating the clouds and splitting rocks straight into the soul. Retreat quickly. No one dared to delay. Although they were far away, they all rushed towards the same direction at full speed. After killing one person, that flying dead thing also sensed the aura of Su Yi and the others. It flapped its wings again and pounced with all its might. This dead thing is much more powerful than the one I met. I'm not its match, Elder Gao Tsung said solemnly as he fled. Su Yi also had a rough judgment in his heart. Although this flying dead thing was already dead, its power was still terrifying. Just in terms of physical strength, its remaining strength was probably not even 1,000th of its strength when it was alive, but it was enough to make people terrified. Among the group, only Elder Gao Tsung and the other 2 Origin Emperor Realm experts were present. Su Yi could also fight with ordinary Origin Emperors, but he didn't have the slightest confidence against this creature. Run quickly. When the few Origin Void Realm experts saw that the dead thing was chasing after them, they realized that they couldn't escape at all with their speed. Immediately, they swept to the side and separated themselves from Su Yi, Feng Qi'er, Elder Gao Tsung, and the others. Strangely enough, the bird-type undead creature actually ignored them and chased after Su Yi's group of 4. If we really can't do it, then let's work together to kill it. Su Yi gritted his teeth. He used his speed, which was comparable to an ordinary Origin Emperor Realm expert, but he couldn't shake off that dead thing at all. Elder Gao Tsung and the other Origin Emperor Realm expert looked at each other. Similarly, a fierce look appeared in their eyes as they planned to turn back and fight. It would be difficult to escape too far, so they might as well give it a try. However, just as they were about to stop, they saw another mound rise from below. From it, a dead thing crawled out. It looked like a spiritual ape with gray eyes, rotten lips, and ghastly fangs. Its 2 legs cracked the dark brown ground as it stepped on a large area of withered bones. Like a powerful arrow, it raised one hand and directly grabbed at Elder Gao Tsung. Elder Gao Tsung cried out in alarm as he instantly changed his direction and hurriedly dodged. He was caught off guard and had 2 disciples with him. His speed was affected, and 2 bloody grooves appeared on his heels. Rumble. Then, not far away, another dead thing crawled out from the ground and flapped its wings. With a sharp sound, it went straight for the other Origin Emperor Realm expert. It was another flying dead thing. Its instincts were triggered, and it suddenly attacked. The first dead thing was chasing Su Yi and Feng Qi relentlessly. It was as fast as lightning, constantly closing the distance between them. 3 dead things were chasing in 3 different directions. Even if the 3 of them worked together to deal with one, they didn't have absolute confidence. Now that 3 of them had appeared, it was even more impossible to contend against. Split up and escape. Take care of yourselves. Su Yi shouted at Elder Gao Tsung. He brought along Feng Qi and pushed the strength in his body to the limit. His Yuan Qi was boiling as he ran for his life. At the same time, Su Yi's heart sank a lot. Everything in this ruin was so confusing. After entering for a few days, the things they saw weren't complicated, but they couldn't be understood. These dead things were formed from the corpses of ancient creatures. Those with flesh and blood left were still activated instinctively and hadn't completely died out. Chapter 1284. Since Su Yi couldn't figure out the answer to these questions, he decided not to think too much about it. He took with him and fled for his life in a certain direction. The undead creature was powerful and appeared more frequently. It seemed to have something to do with the direction he was heading. Could the direction we are heading to be the center of the ruins? Feng Qi'er, who was being carried by Su Yi, had an anxious look on her face. She had also noticed this point. That's the only explanation. Su Yi nodded. A sharp chi pierced through the air and attacked his back. As the wind blew, it was as though it was tearing the heavens and earth apart. By initial O-0, the undead creature's pure physical attack caused the space to shake and ripple. Swish! When the sharp edge attacked, Su-yi only felt that the Yuan Chi shield on his back was torn apart by a huge force. He couldn't help but step on the ground and used his movement technique to dodge, narrowly avoiding his vital points. Even so, the flesh on his back was torn apart, leaving a long, bloody scar. This undead creature is too powerful. It's not inferior to a 6th-level Origin Emperor expert. It might even be stronger. Su-yi estimated in his heart and had a rough estimate of the undead creature's strength. Fortunately, the bird didn't have intelligence and only knew how to attack directly. Otherwise, the strength it could unleash would be even stronger. Just as Su-yi was pondering, the undead creature attacked again and again, as though it didn't know what fatigue was. Su-yi fled at full speed and pushed his speed to the limit. Soon, he had traversed a distance of over 100 miles. On his body, there were a few more wounds. Su-yi, how are you? Feng Qi was very anxious, but there was nothing she could do. I'm fine. It's all superficial wounds. It's not a big problem. But this thing chasing after me is too annoying. If I don't think of a way to get rid of it, I will be exhausted to death sooner or later. Su-yi said. The undead creature seemed to have an endless amount of energy, as its attacks were endless. He had to think of a way to get rid of it. However, just as he finished speaking, his soul power discovered that another undead creature had crawled out from the ground behind him. Not long after, another one appeared. In the blink of an eye, the 3 dead creatures were in hot pursuit. Their unparalleled power swept through the void. Every one of them was probably not inferior to the jackal Su-yi first encountered. They could stir up space. This can't go on. Su-yi's forehead was sweating profusely. If this continued, he would be surrounded by dead things sooner or later. If there was really no other way, he could only hide in the mysterious space. But in that case, it would be even more difficult for him to show his face again. Moreover, it might even attract the attention of others. At that time, this huge secret would not be able to be kept. Chi-chi. At this moment, a sharp wind blade pierced through the sky and struck Su-yi's back. His flesh and blood instantly turned into a bloody mist, as if they were being twisted by a mysterious force. Su-yi didn't need to look to know that a bloody hole had appeared on his back. Feng Qi, on the other hand, was unscathed as she was tightly protected in front of him. Below, 2 giant bee skeletons leaped up and went against the sky, wanting to tear Su-yi into pieces. Go ahead and wait for me. I'll block them for a while. Su-yi roared and used gentle force to throw Feng Qi out. She landed on the ground in the distance and rolled a few times before coming to a stop. Being chased up and down by a group of undead creatures, Su-yi had a belly full of anger. He twisted his body angrily, and the sacred artifact Heavenly Star Soul Shock appeared in his hand. The Origin Supreme technique in his body circulated rapidly. The Origin Supreme technique circulated unconsciously here. Su-yi was afraid that it would cause some changes, so he deliberately suppressed it along the way. At this moment, the suppression force was released. A terrifying power was like a boiling sea. Vigorous vitality danced in the air, dense and dazzling. A demonic but not evil power spread out. It was as if a Holy Spirit had descended upon the world, and its power could destroy the heavens. Kill! Su-yi's eyes were clear. He waved the sacred artifact and used a terrifying killing move right away. A resplendent saber light carried a whistling sound as it slashed toward one of the undead creatures that leaped into the air. At the same time, vitality swirled under his feet as he executed the Fiao 100 transformation steps, preparing to do his best to avoid the other 2 undead creatures. Just as the saber light slashed down, an extremely surprising situation occurred. Chi-la! The saber light broke through the sky, and a mighty force burst forth. It directly slashed the undead creature into 2 halves, sending broken bones flying everywhere. However, just as Su Yi's rising, swaying hunter transformation steps started to change, he was surprised to see that the other walking beast and bird-type dead creature seemed to have used up all of their energy in an instant. Their power was greatly reduced, and the attack that they were brewing also disappeared in an instant. Their bodies became weak and powerless, and they slowly fell to the ground with two loud bangs. He stopped not far away. His eyes were as wide as copper bells, and he opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. Such an outcome made him confused. A moment ago, the undead creatures were incomparably fierce and had the power of thunder, as if they wanted to destroy everything. But in the blink of an eye, everything came to an abrupt end. He couldn't understand and didn't know why it was like this. There must be a reason behind this. He muttered to himself, but didn't think too much about it. He quickly landed beside Feng Qi in the distance, and then carefully pondered. There was no doubt that the undead creatures were powerful. Otherwise, it wouldn't have chased so many martial artists in all directions. Even Elder Gao Tsong, who was at the Origin Emperor realm, had been injured because of it. Moreover, this thing could really kill people. However, what he saw just now was an unexpected situation. The undead creature that I encountered before was the same. It fell from the sky as soon as we met, and its instincts collapsed. He thought of the situation he encountered at the beginning, and vaguely seemed to have captured some important information. It seemed that the undead creatures would inexplicably exhaust all their strength and completely die in front of him. Of course, he wouldn't be so naive as to think that he really had some kind of domineering aura that could make the undead creatures retreat with a shake. Could it be related to the Origin Supreme technique? Suddenly, Su Yi's eyes narrowed, and he made such a guess. The two times he faced the undead creatures head-on, he had operated the Origin Supreme technique. Other than that, there was nothing special. Thinking of this possibility, he couldn't help but be shocked. Ever since he entered this ruin, the Origin Supreme technique often operated unconsciously, and he had to deliberately suppress it. He didn't expect this technique to have the effect of restraining the undead creatures. Is it because these undead creatures are of the demon clan? He frowned and pondered, but he couldn't get an answer. However, when he thought of how he had been chased all the way and was in a sorry state, he only felt a loss. If he had known this, he wouldn't have had to suffer so much. He would have just let it operate on its own and swagger through the ruin. How comfortable would that be? What's going on? Feng Shi couldn't help but ask when she saw Su Yi's expression change again and again. I have some guesses, but I'm not sure yet. I need to verify them. Chapter 1285. He was still not sure if this situation was related to the Origin Supreme technique. It seemed that he needed to verify it again. He brought Feng Qi along and went deeper into the ruins, suppressing his cultivation technique once again. Sure enough, not long after, another undead creature appeared and pounced on him. He immediately activated his cultivation technique. Sure enough, when the Origin Supreme technique's aura came into contact with the undead creature seemed to have lost all its strength in an instant. It fell heavily to the ground and crushed a mound of bones. It's really like that. He was pleasantly surprised by such a result. Feng Qi's youthful but beautiful face was filled with surprise. If that's the case, that's great. We can continue to go deeper into the ruins. He grinned, unable to contain the excitement in his heart. Should we look for Elder Gao Tsong and the rest? After Su Yi's explanation, Feng Shi also knew that all this was related to Su Yi's cultivation technique. She immediately thought of Elder Gao Tsong. Those people were also being chased by undead creatures, but they fled in two other directions. I don't think we can find them. They can only rely on themselves. He thought about it and said, the ruins were vast and boundless. Finding those people who were being chased by undead creatures was tantamount to looking for a needle in a haystack. Moreover, with Su Yi's current speed, it was impossible for him to catch up. If he really managed to catch up, he would probably only be able to collect the corpses of those people. He might not even be able to collect the corpses. In fact, he also hoped that Elder Gao Tsong could safely resolve the crisis. Unfortunately, he cannot help. Let's go. I really want to know what kind of place this ruins is. Su-yi said. With the Origin Supreme technique as a layer of protection, he did not have to worry too much. At the very least, he was not afraid of being attacked by undead creatures. Su-yi was full of doubts about this mysterious ruin. If it was related to the Origin Supreme technique, he would have to find out more. Once again on the road, Su-yi and Feng Qi were no longer as anxious as before. There was no need for them to look for powerful martial artists to help them. The feeling is getting stronger and stronger. What exactly is inside? As he moved forward, Su-yi felt the blood in his body boil. The primordial chaos supreme art also began to revolve uncontrollably. The sky above his head had completely darkened. Layers of clouds rolled up, but it looked like a sea of blood was moving and changing. The earth became deeper and deeper, and one could see that the soil was as soft as mud. Some places even had black bubbles. Su-yi knew that it was probably not water, but blood. However, after many years of change, it had changed color and aura. There's someone. After traveling for a long distance, Su-yi and Feng Qi saw figures appearing. Those who could fly were either at the Origin Void Realm or the Origin Emperor Realm. When he got closer, he saw that it was a middle-aged man being chased by an undead creature, fleeing for his life. An Origin Emperor at that. I wonder which power he is from. Su-yi muttered to himself. Seeing that person rushing in his direction, it was obvious that he wanted to drag Su-yi down with him and use him as a shield. This made Su-yi's eyes darken. He waited for the other party to get closer. Then he suddenly took Feng Qi and dodged. As for the undead creature, it was still chasing behind that person, as if it did not notice Su-yi's existence. What a cunning little bastard. The middle-aged man cursed, but he did not dare to stop, let alone turn around and trick Su-yi again. He was chased far away by the undead creature. It seems that there are many people here. Not long after, they met another person. It was a middle-aged man at the Origin Void Realm who was also being chased by an undead creature. From afar, the middle-aged man shouted, "Young man, why are you fine? Is there any way to deal with this undead creature? I am a deacon of the Blue Cloud Hall. If you are Su-yi?" As the voice got closer, the middle-aged man saw Su-yi's face and could not help but exclaim. He took the undead creature around in a big circle, gritted his teeth, and revealed a bitter smile. The middle-aged man knew that Su-yi was also at the Origin Void Realm. There was probably no way to save him, so he could only take the undead creature away from here. Fortunately, the dead creature wasn't particularly powerful. The main thing was that its limbs were incomplete. As a walking beast, only its front and back legs were complete. It could hop and hop on the ground. Otherwise, it would have killed the middle-aged man 100 times over. Someone from the Blue Cloud Hall? When Su-yi heard the middle-aged man's words, he immediately flew over and said loudly, "Come to my side. I have a way to deal with it." The middle-aged man was skeptical, but after thinking for a moment, he really made up his mind and rushed toward Su-yi. At the same time, he prayed that Su-yi really had a way to deal with the undead creature chasing behind them. Otherwise, both of them would be dead. Buzz, the middle-aged man, came closer and put on a posture of wanting to fight together with Su-yi. However, what he saw was that Su-yi casually stepped out and stood in front of him. In an instant, a strange aura surged from the young man's body. At this time, the undead creature had already rushed over. It jumped up from below, and a pair of front claws were about to tear Su-yi to pieces. The middle-aged man's heart suddenly jumped to his throat. However, under his frightened gaze, Su-yi just stood still, and the aura on his body surged. Then, the undead creature seemed to have been drained of its life force in an instant. Its sharp claws retracted, and its attack declined. It drew an arc and fell from the void. This thing can really move. No matter how high you fly, it seems to be able to reach you. Su-yi said indifferently as he watched the scene unfold before him. The undead creatures in the ruins were powerful. Even if they were walking beasts, they were still terrifying. They were as fast as lightning and could pounce on targets in the air from the ground. They also could not escape. Otherwise, with the flying abilities of Origin Void Realm and Origin Emperors, they would not have fled in panic. However, in the ears of the middle-aged man behind him, these words contained an indescribable sense of showing off. How? How did you do it? The middle-aged man's throat rolled as he asked in shock. He even rubbed his eyes, as he could not believe what he saw at all. I have my ways. Su-Yi smiled and did not answer. He then asked, Are you really from the Gray Cloud Hall? He stared at the middle-aged man's eyes with flickering eyes. It was not that he did not believe the man, but he had to be cautious. How can it be fake? The middle-aged man spread out his hands and took out a token from his interspatial bag. It looked like gold and wood, but it was not wood. It flowed with multicolored light. The words Gray Cloud Hall were written in seal script on it, but he did not know what was on the back. Su-Yi nodded and believed 90% of the man's words. Since the man was from the Gray Cloud Hall, it was natural for him to save him. After all, they could be considered friends. The only thing he needed to consider was whether everyone in the Gray Cloud Hall valued him as much as Elder Xie. Chapter 1286. Su-Yi indicated to the middle-aged man that he didn't have to be polite, but he found that the other party's eyes were still filled with a strange meaning. This guy is indeed as mysterious as the rumors say. Secretly, the middle-aged man was speechless. He only felt that Su-Yi was too strange. That dead thing was extremely terrifying. Many people died because of it, but in front of him, they were like trash. Just now, the aura on Su-Yi's body set him off like a god. Perhaps in the eyes of the dead, this young man was also extraordinary. This was the only explanation. After all, he didn't see how Su-Yi attacked. Deacon Wu, did you find anything here? After a few words, Su-Yi knew that the middle-aged man's surname was Wu. He couldn't help but inquire about the situation, wanting to get more information. Hearing his question, Deacon Wu's face suddenly had a look of horror and muttered, Not much, but many people died. His body couldn't help but tremble, and he was still in shock. He roughly recounted the situation that he had experienced. It turned out that after entering the ruins, he didn't meet many people in the past few days. Moreover, after observing, he found that as he advanced in a certain direction, the power in the ruins became more and more strange. Therefore, he thought that it was very likely to contain something different, so he explored all the way. On this point, his thoughts were exactly the same as Su-Yi's. Along the way, Deacon Wu also met many people who had the same mentality and wanted to join forces to explore. Moreover, those who dared to advance were all extraordinary cultivators. Many of them were at the Origin Emperor Realm and Origin Void Realm. Many of us joined forces and suppressed several dead things. We kept moving forward until we saw a mountain range. And in that mountain range, more dead things suddenly surged out. There were too many of them, covering the sky and earth. I'm afraid there were dozens of them, and everyone could only run. Many people died, especially those below the Origin Void Realm. Almost all of them were wiped out. Deacon Wu still had lingering fear as he muttered, Some Origin Void Realm and Origin Emperor Realm experts have also died. If that undead thing that was chasing me didn't lose its 2 legs, I'm afraid I wouldn't have survived. Su-Yi's heart sank when he heard that. It seemed that the mountain range might be the center of the ruins, where some secrets were buried. He decided to take a look. Which mountain are you going to? Su-Yi's decision made Deacon Wu turn pale with fright, and he almost jumped up. Deacon Wu, are you coming with me? Or are you going outside? Su-Yi asked. He did not insist, but he also made it clear that he had encountered many dead things along the way. The circuit was not necessarily safe. Regarding this, Deacon Wu pondered for a long time. Finally, he made up his mind and said, I'll go with you. No matter what, you saved me. Moreover, I believe that you have a way. This confidence came from what he had seen with his own eyes. Let's go. Su-Yi was the first to make a move. He streaked across the sky, and Deacon Wu quickly followed. Their speed was very fast. They were moving forward at full speed. Inanimate objects still appeared occasionally on the way, yet they were easily dealt with by Su-Yi causing them to fall completely silent. This caused Deacon Wu to be shocked over and over again, yet he became numb to it in the end. The three of them walked for an entire day. When the blood clouds in the sky became darker and darker, they finally saw a continuous mountain range at the end of their line of sight. It was not too high, but it was like a city wall. In the distance, they did not see any inanimate objects wandering around. Su, Yi, and the other two continued on their journey. After a few more hours, they really reached the vicinity of the mountain range and looked at it from 2 to 3 miles away. Could this mountain range also be made of the bones of living creatures? Su, Yi frowned and pondered. He really wanted to take a look. However, he held back. A few inanimate objects could be suppressed by the primeval chaos supreme technique, but if they swarmed out, he did not know if he could withstand it. On the other hand, the primeval chaos supreme technique became more and more active when they reached this place. Moreover, the red clouds above their heads were hanging low as if they could reach it from the ground. Terrifying blood-colored power surged endlessly, as if dark clouds were covering the sky and brewing a torrential rain. The sky also became dimmer because of this. "Are we going up?" Deacon Wu swallowed his saliva and said with difficulty. Along the way, he vaguely felt some respect for Su, Yi in his heart. "Let's wait for a while. There should be others rushing over," Su Yi said after thinking for a while. The ruins were huge, but it was not difficult for experts to discover them. It would be even stranger if they walked in this direction. Even though there were endless dangers, there was no guarantee that many people would come to investigate. This was what Deacon Wu and the others had thought. "Let's find a place to rest. Don't disturb those inanimate objects." Su, he found a small soil slope and stood on it. His robe fluttered even though there was no wind. Feng Che and Deacon Wu stood on his left and right, waiting quietly. Sure enough, after a few hours, a group of figures appeared. They brought with them a huge aura and came to the vicinity of the mountain range. Those people obviously saw Su, Yi, Deacon Wu, and the others and flew over directly. They are all Origin Void Realm and Origin Emperor Realm. 15 of them. Su Yi probed with his soul power and got a rough idea of the situation. Among the 15 people, there were both men and women. However, most of them were men. There were only 4 women, but their cultivation was not weak. Their ages were different, but most of them were above 40 years old. "Greetings, Deacon Wu of the Green Cloud Hall." Someone recognized Deacon Wu and quickly went forward to greet him. "Greetings." Deacon Wu responded and nodded. Then, his gaze fell on 2 of them. One was an old man, and the other was a middle-aged man. "Greetings to the 2 guardians. It's great that both of you are here." Deacon Wu was overjoyed and greeted the 2 of them. Su Yi also understood that the old man and the middle-aged man were also from the Green Cloud Hall. They were also guardians, and their cultivation was at the Origin Emperor Realm. These 2 are... After the 2 sides met, the crowd looked at Su Yi and Feng Che and exclaimed, "Su Yi, this little bastard is here too." Suddenly, an old man revealed a sinister smile. Seeing that only Deacon Wu and Feng Che were by Su Yi's side, he could not help but walk toward him. "Zhong Huai, what are you doing?" At this moment, the 2 guardians of the Green Cloud Hall rushed out and blocked the old man. "Ling Feng, Hao Yi Dao, are the 2 of you also trying to obstruct the Blood Sun sect?" Following that, another old man walked out from the crowd, releasing a tyrannical chi. A bloody sun appeared behind him, contrasting brilliantly with the bloody sky. "Cute Original Z Starter 0H. So you are from the Blood Sun sect?" Hearing these people's words, Su Yi narrowed his eyes. He knew the identity of the 2 old men. Chapter 12:87. Hearing Su Yi's words, Ling Feng and Hao Yi Dao were both stunned. Almost everyone in the Chaos region already knew about the grudge between the Bawang sect and the Blood Sun sect. The Blood Sun sect had even issued a reward of 1 million 3-star Origin Stones for Su Yi's information. However, this reward was useless in the Mystic Realm, but it wasn't hard to see that the Blood Sun sect was determined to get him. It was just for the treasures on this youth. Sect Master Su, These two people are also Blood Sun sect protectors. Their cultivation is at the mid-level of the Origin Emperor realm. The beard on Elder Ling Feng's chin trembled as he whispered into Su Yi's ear to remind him. That's right. Before we left the Blue Cloud Hall, Elder CS specially instructed us to help you if we meet you. Hao Yi Dao also spoke with a matter-of-fact tone. Hearing this, Su Yi bowed again and said politely, Junior naturally understands Elder Siez and your good intentions. However, I can deal with this small matter by myself. There's no need for the two protectors to do anything. Just help me take care of her. After he finished speaking, he glanced at Feng Qi, and moved forward again, passing by the two protectors. This, Ling Feng and Hao Yi Dao both frowned, but they had nothing to say. They could only act according to the situation. Su Yi took a step forward, his back straight like a javelin, as he stood there quietly. Boundless killing intent brewed within his eyes as he coldly said to the two people from the Blood Sun sect. The people from the Blood Sun sect are indeed dogs. Their noses are very sharp, and they follow me closely. No matter where I go, they're like ghosts that won't disperse. Little bastard, you still dare to talk nonsense at this time. You're simply courting death. This is the ruins, not outside. Let's see who can protect you. Zhong Huai raised his hand and pointed at Su Yi as he said sternly. He glanced at Ling Feng and Hao Yi Dao as he spoke. Su Yi wouldn't be able to survive as long as these two didn't attack him. The other 10+ people that came along with them revealed strange gazes as they moved back slightly, and they opened up some distance from Zhong Huai's group while discussing endlessly in low voices. So he's Su Yi. He looks even younger than the rumors say. I didn't expect to meet him here. I'm afraid I won't be able to escape this time. Outside, there are many experts protecting him. However, in this relic, the strongest is only at the Origin Emperor realm. Moreover, there are a few major forces leading the way. I'm afraid Su Yi will die here. Look at him. He really is as arrogant as the rumors say. But let's back off a little more. We can't afford to get involved in this kind of thing. These words sounded out amongst the 10+ people. Everyone was in awe of the Azure Cloud Hall and Blood Sun sect, and they didn't dare cause trouble. They couldn't afford to offend the Bawang sect. Even though there weren't any other experts from the Bawang sect here with Su Yi, they didn't have the resources of the Blood Sun sect. If they offended Su Yi in the ruins, they would still be dealt with after they left. Is that so? Su Yi laughed lightly when he heard Zhong Huai's words, and he said indifferently, You two old dogs, do you really think you can kill me? What a little bastard. You're only at the Origin Void Realm, yet you dare be arrogant before the two of us. The other Blood Sun sect old man grunted coldly as he took a step forward and surrounded Su Yi with Zhong Huai. When they saw that a fierce battle was about to break out, the 10+ people on the other side were tense, and they mainly had the mentality of watching a good show. However, right at this moment, a string of swishing sounds sounded out from afar. Subsequently, another 10+ figures tore through the sky and arrived at the scene with extreme speed. So lively? Among the people who arrived, a burly man in his 50s spoke. His leopard eyes looked around, emitting a brazen aura, making people feel fearful for no reason. Elder Wei. The moment this person arrived, Deacon Wu immediately cried out in surprise. This was actually a Blue Cloud Hall elder, 9th level Origin Emperor realm. In the crowd behind him, there was another Origin Emperor realm old man, also a member of the Blue Cloud Hall. Very soon, they all gathered together with Ling Feng and Hao Yi Dao. After seeing the hostile atmosphere between Su Yi and the Blood Sun sect, the burly man in his 50s swept a glance and seemed to have seen through everything. That massive body was like a small mountain, blocking in front of Su Yi. Facing Zhong Huai duo, he said, This is the ruins. I won't easily kill you guys either, but scram to the side for me now. Otherwise, I don't mind swatting you guys away like flies. His figure was stout, directly 2 heads taller than Su Yi. When he spoke, his voice was like a large drum beating, full of energy. Wei Hong. Facing this burly man's words, the 2 Blood Sun sect elders were like eating bedbugs. their expressions ugly to the extreme. However, the Blue Cloud Hall clearly wanted to protect Su-yi at this time. Continuing to entangle, they absolutely would not gain anything. Carrying looks of endless hatred, Zhonghui duo glared at Su-yi one last time and retreated very quickly, the aura on their bodies withdrawing. Many thanks, Elder Wei. Su-yi watched all of this and did not stop anymore either. The Blood Sun sect people already withdrew themselves. It was not nice for him to join in and stir up trouble again either. But some debts would be settled sooner or later. At the same time, Su-yi's favorable impression of the Blue Cloud Hall multiplied. Looks like Elder Xie's status in the Blue Cloud Hall was not ordinary to actually be able to persuade so many people to really provide him protection. What are you thanking for? Master thinks so highly of you. You mustn't disappoint his elderly self. Wei Hong slapped Su-yi's shoulder with a dustpan-like palm, slapping him until he staggered as he said with a hearty laugh. Su-yi was greatly alarmed in his heart. This Wei Hong's strength was very strong, and the pure physical strength was even more terrifying. His diamond body somewhat could not withstand that slap. Furthermore, this Wei Hong was even Elder Xie's disciple. It was just that he did not know why he could also be listed as an elder of the Blue Cloud Hall with Origin Emperor Realm strength. Should be because of potential. Su-yi guessed. Wei Hong was merely over 50 years old, but was already at the 9th level Origin Emperor Realm. Such talent could be rated as monstrous. Everyone, tell me what's the situation here. Wei Hong was swift and decisive. He immediately opened his mouth and asked everyone about the situation here. But Deacon Wu and the rest all shook their heads like a rattle drum, indicating that they knew nothing. We also just arrived here, but there are many dead things in that mountain range. Once alarmed, I'm afraid that there will be endless trouble. Deacon Wu recalled his experience and felt a chill in his heart. He also did not know how many of those who had traveled with him at the beginning were still alive. We have also encountered a few of those dead things. They are very strong, but they do not have spiritual intelligence. It is not too difficult to kill them, Wei Hong said aloud. However, he immediately frowned, but if there are too many of them, it is indeed a big problem. Su-yi secretly nodded his head. This Wei Hong was indeed at the 9th level Origin Emperor Realm. Dealing with dead things was much easier than others. Chapter 1288. Elder Wei, what should we do? Should we cross the mountain range and take a look? As soon as Wei Hong arrived, he was the strongest person here. He quickly became everyone's backbone. Apart from the two old men from the Blood Sun sect, the rest of the people gathered in front of him and looked at him with questioning gazes. This relic is too strange. The area that we have walked through is not particularly dangerous. However, we have no idea about the situation on the other side of the mountain range. We might encounter something unimaginable. Wei Hong's leopard eyes shone. Even though he spoke softly, his voice was like thunder. He said, "Of course we have to go and take a look. However, we must be careful." The rest of the group nodded. Although Wei Hong looked rough, he was actually meticulous. What he said was reasonable. So many people have entered this place. We can wait here for a while and join forces with more experts to explore. An Origin Emperor who seemed to be an unaffiliated cultivator said. Among the many experts, there would definitely be people coming in this direction. Only by joining forces could they resist the undead. Otherwise, they would be scattered by the undead like what happened to Deacon Wu and the rest. They would have to flee for their lives. With regard to this decision, Su-yi did not say much and gladly agreed. Even if he could not wait to find out more, it would be better if there were more people traveling together. They waited for 2 days before 2 groups of people arrived one after another. During this period, Zhonghui and the rest of the Blood Sun sect stared at Su-yi fiercely from time to time. However, they did not dare to do anything as they were afraid of Wei Hong. "Little brat, you can't escape from the palm of my Blood Sun sect." The 2 groups of people actually had close to 40 martial artists. Among them, there was also a 9th level Origin Emperor from the Blood Sun sect. After hearing about the previous incident, he only coldly threw down a ruthless sentence and didn't say anything else. He was still afraid of the Blue Cloud Palace. There were also a few people from Nine-Star Valley who arrived. Their gazes were deep, but they did not say anything. In addition, the outstanding disciples of the three major forces, Jing Charan and Wu Jiuyo, came. Su Yi also saw some familiar people from the second-rate forces, such as Shang Wangqin from the Boundless Palace, Shui Yuechan from the Purple Shadow Tower, and a few experts from the Big Dipper sect. When Shang Wangqin and Shui Yuechan saw Su Yi from afar, they nodded their heads in greeting. Those from the Heavenly Dipper sect felt fear in their hearts. They knew that Su Yi wasn't someone easy to deal with. They didn't have any experts from their sect supporting them and were afraid that they would be killed by that young man. After all, the Azure Cloud Hall was behind him. We've all made a living in the Chaos Realm, and we may have had many conflicts. But since we've entered the ruins, let's work together and think of a way to get out of here. After these people arrived, some of them had grudges against each other in the past and immediately wanted to fight. When they were outside, no one would ask about this kind of thing. But now that they were in the ruins, there were true powerhouses who had spoken. All hatred could be temporarily set aside in the face of finding a way out. No one wanted to wait any longer. Now that they had gathered a considerable force, they felt that it was time to continue exploring. The road ahead is unknown. To be on the safe side, let's split into two groups and ascend the mountain one after the other to scout the situation, an expert said. But as soon as he said that, there was only silence. No one was willing to walk in front to scout the way. The possible danger was worrying. Everyone from the Blood Sun sect, are you willing to scout the way for us? Wei Hong turned his gaze and looked at the Blood Sun sect. Zhong Huai and the others' faces turned purple as they were furious. Why isn't the Azure Cloud Hall leading the way? Zhong Huai asked immediately. Before Wei Hong could speak, the 9th-level Origin Emperor from the Blood Sun sect said, "It's not up to us three first-rate forces to take the lead." As he spoke, he glanced at the people around him. They were all from second-rate forces and rogue cultivators. The meaning behind his words was obvious. Even though they were working together, there was still a hierarchy. Whoever had the bigger fist would have the final say. The experts from the small forces and rogue cultivators unconsciously took a few steps back. Their faces were filled with fear and anger, but they didn't dare to act out. "Ah, a bunch of cowards!" Wei Hong suddenly spat out a mouthful of saliva. When the big guy did this, it was quite interesting. However, these words weren't said to those small forces and rogue cultivators, but to the people from the Blood Sun sect. "Wei Hong, you!" The veins on the 9th-level Origin Emperor's forehead bulged as he said angrily, "Since you don't agree, why don't your Azure Cloud Hall go first?" He sneered. Only a fool would try to be a hero at this time. Our Azure Cloud Hall isn't as cowardly as the Blood Sun sect." Wei Hong glanced at the old man, then waved his hand to Ling Feng, Hao Yi Dao, Deacon Wu, and the others beside him. He said loudly, "Let's go." As soon as he finished speaking, his origin energy surged and directly carried everyone, including Su Yi and Feng Qi, and flew directly towards the mountain. Before leaving, he actually spat at the Blood Sun sect again. Such a scene caused the experts from the Blood Sun sect, 9 Stars Valley, and Big Dipper sect to be stunned on the spot. They looked at each other, unable to make heads or tails of it. Even many rogue cultivators couldn't make heads or tails of the situation. As Azure Cloud Hall's experts, they actually had to scout the way first. Everyone was somewhat overwhelmed by the favor. "Ha ha!" Loud laughter came from ahead, as if mocking them, especially the people from the Blood Sun sect. X0-inch refreshing. Wei Hong's voice was loud like the beating of a drum. He transmitted his voice to the people beside him and said, "I've long found those idiots from the Blood Sun sect an eyesore, but I've never scolded them so happily." He was indeed so happy that the people from the Blood Sun sect couldn't talk back. This was something that had never happened before. However, this confidence came from a youth beside him. "Little guy, do you really have a way to deal with dead things?" Hao Yi Dao was somewhat in disbelief and confirmed with Su Yi again. The idea of the Azure Cloud Hall going first was this youth's idea. Moreover, Deacon Wu had also roughly explained the situation on the way in private. Such ability made everyone extremely surprised. Of course it's true, Su, he nodded and said with a chuckle. You'll know when the dead things appear, right? The Azure Cloud Hall had a good relationship with him. So, Su, he wanted to take these people with him. He didn't want to care about the rest. Hey, you're still keeping us in suspense. Wei Hong laughed and reached out to pat Su Yi's shoulder again, but he nimbly dodged. Su Yi's eyes flashed as he looked ahead, and the Origin Supreme technique in his body began to circulate. As they approached the mountain range ahead, a different kind of charm began to rise. As far as the eye could see, there seemed to be endless red light rushing up to the sky from the mountain range, illuminating the sky. Chapter 1289. The aura of death condensed and rose from the ground like huge clusters of black smoke. When they reached the top of the mountain, they seemed to be even closer to the boundless blood cloud above their heads. Hee! Rumble! The incomplete roars of the dead creatures were mixed with the sound of the earth rising. Sensing the anger of Su, Yi, and the rest, huge beasts broke through the soil and pounced towards them. 7 or 8 of them appeared in an instant. Kill! Wei Hong roared and his aura surged. As the clouds gathered and rain formed, the fine raindrops fell like thousands of swords, falling straight on the dead creatures on the ground. PFFF, PFFF, PFFF. The rain of swords weaved into a terrifying fine net. Waves of cries rang out, and killing intent surged. Every single drop that landed on a dead object would leave behind a small hole. Thousands of swords fell together, turning the dead creatures into honeycombs. The momentum of the attack was greatly reduced. At the same time, Ling Feng, Hao Yi Dao, and the other experts of the Blue Cloud Hall also attacked at the same time. Numerous attacks were launched, and the numerous dead creatures that had approached them were instantly disintegrated. They fell to the ground and turned into piles of broken bones. As expected of a 9th-level Origin Emperor, the power of this attack is extraordinary. Su Yi estimated that Wei Hong's cultivation was indeed very strong. His overall strength was probably not much weaker than Impermanent's fairy. Several dead creatures were injured by the power of the rain of swords. Ling Feng, Hao Yi Dao, and the rest were able to defeat them easily. Let's go. Wei Hong carried the group and rushed towards the front of the mountain. However, this place was like a huge graveyard. There were too many dead creatures buried here. They were even more powerful when they were alive. There were countless dead creatures that had not completely decayed. As the group walked, the dead creatures climbed up. There were more and more of them. Together with Su, Yi, and Feng Qi, the group of 10 advanced quickly. They were all relying on Wei Hong's strong support to kill a path through the dead creatures. Su Yi did not attack immediately to prevent the people of the Blood Sun sect from seeing any clues. Only when he went even deeper did he release the primordial Origin Supreme art that he had been suppressing. A terrifying aura circulated and a large number of dead creatures rushed in front of him. When they touched this aura, they fell into the void like dead fish. Wei Hong and the others were all fiercely shocked because of this, and they looked at Su Yi with even more respect. The rest of the journey was much smoother. The primeval chaos supreme technique formed an aura of 100 feet around him, preventing all living things from approaching. There's nothing but an aura of death. I can't see any signs of life. What the hell is this place? Wei Hong mumbled as he looked around. Look, it looks like a weapon. Someone exclaimed, pointing at a straight black shadow in the distance. When he got closer, he saw a large halberd stuck into the ground. The tip of the halberd was buried in the soil, so he couldn't see it clearly. The exposed halberd shaft was as thick as the mouth of a bowl. It was mottled with rust, and had almost corroded through, turning into a lump of iron. Even after being corroded to this extent, it still has some spirituality. This thing is extraordinary. Wei Hong pulled up the halberd, stirring up the soil. He took it in front of him and looked at it carefully. When he injected his primordial qi into it, there was still a brilliance circulating. A strong murderous aura suddenly gushed out. Su Yi's primeval chaos supreme art's aura was directly pierced through, bursting like a bubble. Puff! An Origin Void realm martial artist suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was as pale as paper. The rest of the people also retreated in horror, as if they had suffered a heavy blow. Suddenly, the halberd broke in the middle. The more corroded parts broke into several pieces and rustled as they fell into the void. Only then did the murderous aura stop. However, everyone present had cold sweat on their foreheads, as if they had encountered a great crisis. Especially Feng Che, who closed her eyes and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Her small face was frighteningly pale. Fortunately, her soul power was not weak. Coupled with Wei Hong, Su Yi, and the others' deliberate protection, she was not in serious trouble. Su Yi's chi and blood violently shook, and his soul power also set off stormy waves. What a terrifying weapon! Wei Hong's heart almost jumped to his throat. He threw away the remaining halberd in his hand and did not dare to touch it again. A bloody mess appeared on the palm that held the halberd just now. A halberd that had been corroded to such an extent could not even maintain its shape. However, it still had some residual power. Just a little bit of primordial chi, and it exploded with a terrifying power. It was simply too frightening. Even if it's a divine artifact, it's impossible to explode with such murderous aura under such circumstances. Deacon Wu's teeth were chattering, and he was horrified. A divine artifact could be immortal for eternity. However, the halberd just now had definitely exceeded the category of a divine artifact. What a pity! Wei Hong did not care about the injury on his palm, and a look of pity appeared on his face. He immediately turned his head and looked at the people around him and asked, "How are you all?" "It's nothing serious." Su Yi and the others shook their heads and took elixirs to heal their injuries. The aura just now was too strong, and it only lasted for a blink of an eye. Everyone was injured to a certain extent, but it was not serious. A halberd that exceeded the category of a divine artifact had turned into pieces and no longer had any spirituality. It was indeed a pity. The group continued on their way. There were countless dead things along the way, but they could not cause any trouble. After walking for thousands of miles, Deacon Wu suddenly said, "Have you all noticed that the further we go, the fewer dead things there are?" Needless to say, everyone had noticed this. After walking for so long, it was even more difficult to encounter a dead thing. However, an even more terrifying scene appeared between heaven and earth. Waves of boundless storms came and went swiftly, and they swept far away from the crowd, connecting the sky and the earth. The withered ground below was crushed, and a large number of broken bones danced in the storm. From afar, it looked like a storm. That's a storm formed by the death chi and blood chi. Try to avoid it as much as possible. If you touch it, who knows what will happen? Wei Hong's face was solemn as he instructed everyone. Everyone nodded in unison. They did not dare to be careless and followed closely. After walking for thousands of miles again, the scene gradually changed. Finally, some vitality appeared on the ground, which was particularly abrupt in this space of dead silence. A majestic mountain range stretched across the horizon, and dense spiritual chi flowed over, making one feel indescribably comfortable. Huge ancient trees grew, connecting heaven and earth. They were lush and full of vitality. For many days, they had been facing the blood-red sky and the dark brown ground, which made their vision numb. The change of the scene made some people overjoyed. It was as if they had walked into heaven from hell. "Hey, the people behind are following us," Su Yi suddenly exclaimed. He turned around and saw many auras rushing over from the way they came. They were extremely fast. Not long after, he saw some familiar figures. They were the powerhouses of the Blood Sun sect, 9 Stars Valley, and Big Dipper sect. In addition, there were a few rogue cultivators. Chapter 1290. Other than those figures, there were a large number of dead things behind them. It was as if a black cloud was pressing over, densely packed and innumerable. Almost everyone in the crowd at the front was covered in blood, and they would turn around to attack from time to time, trying to stop the entanglement of those dead things. Ha ha! Seeing this, Wei Hong suddenly laughed loudly. His laughter broke through the clouds and clearly reached the ears of those people in the distance. The cowards of the Blood Sun sect are quite courageous. They actually made it here. He crossed his arms and said loudly. Seeing this scene, the people around him were all in a good mood. Without Su Yi's help, the other party was actually chased all the way here by the dead things. It seemed that there were even some casualties among the rogue cultivators. In comparison, the people of the Blue Cloud Hall who had made it all the way here simply felt too blessed. Why are you all fine? The 9th-level Origin Emperor of the Blood Sun sect shouted. He turned around and took out a Blood Sun to fiercely suppress. 2 dead things that pounced in front of him were instantly crushed and turned into broken bones. His figure also shot out explosively, bringing Wu Jiuyo and another Blood Sun sect disciple with him as he quickly rushed over. Wei Hong and the others were all bursting with joy. They looked at this scene calmly and did not have the slightest intention to help. It's not bad that so many people are rushing over. Su Yi roughly observed for a while. There were still more than 20 to 30 people who had made it here. They had lost about 30% of their manpower. It had to be said that this loss was not considered much. Compared to the countless dead things, it was already very surprising. Of course, all of this was definitely due to the joint efforts of the Origin Emperors. Are we going to wait for them? Deacon Wu asked. Wei Hong waved his hand domineeringly and led everyone to rush towards the mountain range that was full of vitality. He would not care about these things. No matter if it was the Blood Sun sect or the 9-Star Valley, they all had various conflicts of interest with the Blue Cloud Hall. They could not wait for the other party to die. It was even more impossible for them to save people. Su Yi also had the same thought. In the 9-Stars Valley, he only recognized Elder Tang Wang and had no relationship with anyone else. However, he still glanced at Shang Wanchen and Shui Yuechan who were in the crowd. He noticed that these 2 outstanding disciples were under the protection of their respective sects and did not suffer any serious injuries. Their lives were not in danger for the time being. When Su Yi and the others crossed the lifeless land and arrived at the border of the land full of vitality, they felt as if they had entered an independent space, like the boundary between life and death. The boundless aura of death disappeared, and the surroundings appeared unprecedentedly peaceful. Don't be in a hurry to leave. The sudden change made everyone happy, but at the same time, they were also wary. Su Yi waved his hand, and everyone stopped. All of this was because the primeval Origin Supreme art in his body had returned to its normal state after coming here. Su Yi didn't know why, but he didn't dare to let his guard down, so he stopped. Let's wait for them. Wei Hong looked behind them. He couldn't see the boundary between life and death, but he seemed to have thought of something. Not long after, under the pursuit of a large number of dead creatures, the group of more than 20 people who had followed behind also rushed over. Seeing that the people from the Ash Cloud Palace were still standing there and looking at them, the people from the Blood Sun sect snorted and rushed towards the mountain without looking back. Behind them, there were still countless dead creatures chasing after them. However, at this moment, something unexpected happened. The densely packed dead creatures covered the sky and the earth. They were startled and followed the experts to this place. The aura of the experts was fierce, as if it could destroy everything. However, when they touched the boundary, it was as if they had hit an invisible wall. Crack, crack, crack. There was no sound of collision, but the crisp sound of bones breaking could be heard. After all the dead creatures hit it, they all shattered into pieces and fell to the ground. Not long after, a mountain of bones was piled up on the ground, mixed with flesh that had not completely corroded and mixed with a foul smell. It flowed all over the ground, making people want to vomit. This, Su Yi, Deacon Wu, and the others looked at each other. This situation was too strange, and they couldn't make sense of it. So many dead creatures were actually hit to death, just like that. There really is an invisible space barrier. Su Yi was amazed as he saw this point. To be able to block the entry of dead creatures, it wasn't an ordinary space barrier. That's it. Those experts who had been chased to the point of no escape soon discovered this situation. They couldn't help but stop and look back. Their faces were full of shock. Seeing the dead creatures piled up behind them, they finally began to gasp for breath. They were really in a sorry state. Wei Hong, why didn't you encounter any dead creatures? The ninth-level Origin Emperor from the Blood Sun sect swept his cold eyes over with deep doubts. The people from the Ash Cloud Palace were one step ahead, so they should have encountered more dead creatures. Why were they completely fine when they reached this place? On the other hand, which one of them wasn't injured? Some were even covered in blood. If they didn't rely on the protection of experts, they would have lost at least half of their people to reach this place. Perhaps the righteous aura on us is too strong, so the dead creatures don't dare to get close to us, said an old man from the Ash Cloud Palace with a smile. He felt extremely refreshed. That's right, unlike your Blood Sun sect. Look at all of you panting like grandsons, said another person with a smile. Immediately, the sound of panting stopped. They all held their breath at the same time. Whoever panted the loudest would be the grandsons. This action caused the people from the Ash Cloud Palace to roar with laughter again. The ninth-level Origin Emperor from the Blood Sun sect had a deep gaze. His mind turned at lightning speed, and he quickly understood that the Ash Cloud Palace must have some means to avoid being attacked by the dead creatures. Thinking of this result, his eyes became even more gloomy. However, he never imagined that the people from the Ash Cloud Palace could reach this place so easily. It was all related to Su Yi, and the people from the Ash Cloud Palace would never tell him. Recuperate first. The old man waved his hand and led the people from the Blood Sun sect away. He found a place to close his eyes and recover his strength. At the same time, he also divided a trace of his attention to guard against Wei Hong and the others. The remaining people did the same. They didn't have time to pay attention to the situation around them. They had to recover their strength first. Su Yi didn't pay too much attention to these people. He began to observe the situation of the mountain range in the distance again. From afar, he could feel endless vitality rushing towards him. It was as if it was the fourth month in the human world. This scene formed a sharp contrast with everything he had experienced before. It was two extremes. I don't know when this ancient ruin was formed. It's too strange. Wei Hong walked to his side and said. His tone was light, but his voice was loud. Chapter 1291. The moon and stars were shining brightly in the sky, and the air was cool and humid. The swamp, which had gone through an open and covert struggle, returned to peace under the attacks of the storm. In the distance, perilous peaks stood tall, and the accumulated clouds and mist wrapped around the mountainside like silk, drifting slowly. A silent aura filled the peaks and valleys. At this moment, the heavens and earth were like a ferocious beast that could erupt at any time, causing people to tremble. The forest was in turmoil, and the faint roars of beasts could be heard. A little bird perched on a treetop, solemnly looking at the swamp. The faintly discernible short feathers on its body shone with a golden-red light under the moonlight. The little bird's gaze was solemn, and its eyes were filled with killing intent as it stared at the surface of the swamp. The bird perched on the branch was Su Xiaoshui, who had left with the Ash Cloud Palace. Recalling how the Blood Sun sect had vowed not to let him go until he was captured, Su Xiaoshui gripped the tree trunk tightly, gritted his teeth, and said hatefully, "Blood Sun sect, I will remember this. When I find Boss, I will definitely burn your sect. I will flatten your mountain." The Ash Cloud Palace that had escorted him away seemed friendly on the surface, and they were also kind to Su Yi. Su Xiaoshui understood that. However, he was a phoenix after all, and when he was not strong enough, being cautious was the best choice. Taking advantage of the gap in the night, Su Xiaoshui escaped from the Ash Cloud Palace's line of sight and returned to the place where Su Yi had disappeared, hoping to find some traces of Boss Su Yi's disappearance. Su Xiaoshui rolled his red eyes. He did not know whether Su Yi was dead or alive, and he was alone among the Origin ancestor powerhouses with unknown danger. Thinking back to the moment when Boss disappeared, it did not seem like he had been swallowed by space. Instead, it seemed like he had entered a secret space. While he was deep in thought, space rippled above the swamp in the distance, flickering with a whirlpool-like glimmer in the night. Su Xiaoshui looked at the space ripples in surprise. The space ripples seemed to be resonating with his aura, as if they were calling for him. His small eyes flashed with light. What is this feeling? Could it be? Suddenly, Su Xiaoshui's heart was ignited with excitement. Immediately, flames rose around him and demonic qi surged. The shadow of a phoenix appeared behind him. Flames soared into the sky and waves of heat rolled. The small figure shot out like an arrow and pierced through the spatial ripples. "Boss, wait for me. I'll save you." The crisp and resolute voice gradually dissipated as the leaves shook again. The light spots on the ground shook incessantly. At this time, Su, Yi, and the others in the secret realm were looking at the mountain peaks in the distance that were filled with spiritual qi. The mountains were vast, and the green shadows of the mountains reflected the sunlight. The clouds and mountains blended together, and the huge continuous mountain range stretched as far as the eye could see. It was like an ancient dragon between heaven and earth, sacred and magnificent, making people shrink back at the sight of it. One of the peaks stood alone and towered high into the clouds. Looking at it from afar, it looked like a sharp sword descending from the sky. The peak of the mountain was even more abundant with spiritual energy. Clouds and mist lingered around it, making it look like a paradise on earth. Looking back, the skeletons of the ferocious beasts that had just fallen down were still crawling on the ground. The ferocious beast skeletons that had shattered due to the collision with space were scattered everywhere. Their flesh and blood were corroding and melting at a speed visible to the naked eye. Blood soaked the ground and quickly dyed a large area red. It was a ghastly sight. When the crowd saw the strange scene before them, even the late-stage Origin sovereigns and Origin ancestors couldn't help but frown. In the secret realm, Wei Hong was now the leader of the Blue Cloud Hall. Wei Hong looked at Su Yi, who was deep in thought, and knew that it would be extremely dangerous if they continued to go in. The reason why the Blue Cloud Hall could safely reach here was all because of the young man in front of him. After hesitating for a while, he said softly, "Little brother Su Yi, this place seems rather strange. Are we still going to continue towards the mountain range?" Looking at heaven in front of him and hell behind him, Su Yi was a little shocked. He thought to himself that the strange and mysterious space only repelled ferocious beasts, but they could pass through it safely. The ferocious beasts that forced their way and had a bloody ending. He didn't know what dangers lay ahead. This secret realm was so strange that a dangerous aura emerged in everyone's hearts. At the same time, Su Yi also believed that there must be a great treasure here. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Just now, the Origin Supreme technique had stopped. Even if he relied on the Origin Supreme technique, it wouldn't be difficult for him and the Blue Cloud Hall to escape unscathed. Su Yi raised his eyes and said, "Let's go. We've already come here. There's no reason to shrink back. Besides, we don't seem to have any other choice. Let's go." Immediately, the Blue Cloud Heavens experts shouted in agreement. Wei Hong laughed. "Good. No wonder Elder Xie and Elder Hukuin praised Brother Su. Today, I see that you're indeed extraordinary. A hero from a young man. Good. Since Sect Master Su is interested, my Blue Cloud Hall will also participate. What's the harm in charging into the tiger's den?" After saying that, he glanced at the Blood Sun sect that was in a sorry state. The Origin sovereigns of the Blood Sun sect had already adjusted their breathing. Hearing Wei Hong's words, they snorted coldly and said, "How impressive. Don't use words to provoke me. This place is extremely dangerous. There must be a great treasure. Needless to say, we're determined to get the great treasure." Wei Hong was about to flare up when Su Yi saw the two of them fighting and waved his hand to stop them. "The two of you better think about how to enter the mountain." After saying that, everyone fell silent. The dangerous situation just now was still vivid in their minds. Now, no one dared to enter the mountain rashly. Su Yi nodded and raised his eyebrows. "The situation ahead is unclear. I'm afraid that if we go rashly, our lives will be in danger. Elder Wei, pick a few people to go with me. The rest of you rest here." If there are any changes, we could take care of each other. After saying that, Sui looked at the Blood Sun sect. Sui knew that the Blood Sun sect wouldn't be willing to stay here. To avoid adding to the chaos later, he might as well bring a few experts from the Blood Sun sect to be safe. With the Origin Supreme technique, this place seemed to have a great opportunity with the Origin Supreme technique. If the Blood Sun sect launched a surprise attack in a mountain, they would be killed on the spot. Immediately, Sui said, "What about you? Do you want to pick an expert to go with us, or go alone?" The Blood Sun sect's Origin Emperor realm old man's face was cold. Just now, he and the others were in a sorry state, but Sui and the rest were calm. They must have some special methods. He said sternly, "Fine, this old man will go with you. If you see the secret treasure, use your strength to take it. Otherwise, don't blame this old man for being ruthless." Sui's mouth curved into a strange smile. Wei Hong, who was at the side, was fighting for every inch of land. "You speak as if you can get it. Li Zhangqing, I want to see if your Blood Sun sect or my Blue Cloud Hall can get it." "You." Sui waved his hand. He knew that if this continued, there would be another fight. He quickly asked the two to arrange the people to go to the mountain ruins. Blue Cloud Hall, 9-Star Valley, and Blood Sun sect each sent their own Origin Emperor realm experts. Blue Cloud Hall's Deacon Wu, Ling Feng, Hao Yi Dao, and others were definitely among them. 9-Star Valley also sent a few experts. Core disciple Jing Qiran was among them. Blood Sun sect had Zhong Huai, Li Zhangqing, and Wu Jiuyou. These three first-rate forces had unbelievably become one in the secret realm. The three groups of people surged their origin chi. They stepped on the void and soared into the sky, preparing to rush towards the mountain. Among the remaining people, second-rate forces like Shang Wanqin and Shui Yuchan could only silently follow Sui and the rest. As for those with lower cultivation bases, they could only stay where they were. The spatial ripples seemed to be calling out to them, waiting for them to return. Along the way, they passed through the forest and vegetation. The closer they got to the mountain peak, the denser the spirit chi was. If it wasn't for the secret treasure, Sui would definitely be meditating here to cultivate his last origin yang heavenly bone. On the other hand, the Origin Emperor Wei Hong was getting more and more surprised. The speed of the young man in front of him was actually not inferior to them. He kept up with them steadily and didn't fall behind. The method he used to protect them from the beasts was also very mysterious. This made Wei Hong more and more interested in the young man in front of him. The young lady beside him, who had been silent all this time, also had a mysterious aura. This kid's talent is extraordinary. If he has the protection of a sect, he will definitely be a peerless expert. My Blue Cloud Hall must not be on bad terms with him. Let's temporarily listen to this kid in the secret realm. The more Wei Hong thought about it, the more he sighed. He, an Origin Emperor, actually had to listen to a young man in this place. Sui and the rest realized that the closer they got, the lower the altitude they flew. In the end, they could only enter on foot. It was as if there was an invisible cover above their heads. Chapter 1292. Sui transmitted his voice to Feng Qi, who was beside him. "Follow me closely later. When I tell you to release the poison soul, release it." Feng Qi blinked her innocent eyes and silently agreed. Everyone slowly walked into the dense forest. The surrounding ancient trees towered into the sky, and the dense spiritual energy made everyone feel refreshed. Zhong Huai and the others stroked their beards, their eyes overflowing with excitement. Secret treasure. There must be a secret treasure here. What kind of treasure will be nurtured by such dense spiritual energy? The experts of the Blood Sun sect began to ignore the others. Their eyes were dull, and they began to search around like greedy treasure hunters. The dignified Blood Sun sect is now like a scavenger. Wei Hong snorted and snorted. After Wei Hong finished speaking, his body kept trembling. His eyes turned turbid, and he began to murmur, "Find it. There's a secret treasure here. Quickly find it." Immediately after, Deacon Wu roared. He no longer had the demeanor of an original void expert. Behind him, the people of the Green Cloud Hall also began to search in the dense forest. Boom! Wei Hong shook his head and calmed his mind. Yuan Shi gathered in his hand, and he slapped the back of the Green Cloud Hall experts. The gathered Yuan Shi was channeled into the experts of the Green Cloud Hall. Immediately, their feet loosened and they fell to the ground, blood flowing out of their mouths. Su Yi dodged and supported Wei Hong. After supporting Wei Hong, images flashed in front of Su Yi's eyes. The dense forest in front of him was filled with secret treasures. High-grade star and high-grade yellow-grade herbs were everywhere. Moreover, the Blood Sun sect, Baizun, Sacred Mountain, and Wang Chuanda were all looking at him not far away. Su Yi's mind kept flashing with the scene of him crushing the Sacred Mountain and trampling on the Blood Sun sect. Then Su Yi felt dizzy and his body staggered in the void. Quickly leave this place. This is an illusion. We might have been hit by the illusion-type phantom world. Wei Hong shouted weakly. His soul had suffered a great impact. Upon hearing this, Su Yi took Feng Qi, and rushed backward. His vitality condensed, and a red light shot out from his palm. A red dragon-like waterfall shot out, and a spatial ripple in the distance disappeared into thin air. Elder Wei, Su Yi inquired, looking around vigilantly. Run! Wei Hong shouted one last time before he fainted. Su Yi turned pale with fright, looking at the crowd again. Other than a few Origin Emperor experts who were still struggling to hold on, the late Origin Void Realm experts of the second-rate forces had already lost their focus. They were mumbling to themselves, and their consciousness was gradually fading. I want to become stronger. I want to trample all of you under my feet. Ha ha ha. An Origin Void Stage expert beside him kept shouting. The one who was shouting was Jing Chiron of the Nine Stars Valley. Seeing this situation, Su Yi immediately gathered his chi and focused his mind. He circulated the Origin technique, and the restless red Origin soul in his body suddenly calmed down. His eyes also became clear. He immediately took Feng Qi, and flew away from the Blue Cloud Hall and the Nine Stars Valley. Su Yi had only taken a few steps back when he was shocked. Su Yi realized that everyone seemed to have spoken their minds. Usually, they wouldn't dare to say anything, but now, they seemed to have the guts to say it. Everyone became greedy, eager, and bloodthirsty. They were like demonic beasts who saw their prey. Burning Sky Halberd, I must have you. With you, I can dominate the world. An expert roared to himself, mixed with a wild laugh. His veins were bulging and his eyes were protruding. Elder Nya, do you think your tricks can fool me? One day, I will ask you in front of the Valley Master. What exactly did I do to make you look down on me? The Origin Emperor of the Nine Stars Valley knelt on the ground and roared to the sky, as if he wanted to vent all the grievances he had accumulated. Profound purple crystal leaf. There is a profound purple crystal leaf here. I have been looking for you for a long time. An Origin Void Stage expert from second-rate force hugged a leaf and cried in pain. Su Yi, little brat, I will capture you alive. Hee, as long as I bring you back, I will definitely be the chief elder. Zhong Huai, do you still want to compete with me? When Zhong Huai heard Li Zhangqing's words, he was instantly enraged. The blood-red Origin Qi in his hand suddenly rose, forming a blood moon. The blood light overflowed into the sky, stirring up the surrounding leaves and sand. His robe fluttered, and an unparalleled wind swept towards Li Zhangqing's direction with a destructive force. Boom! Pom-pom! The blood moon flourished, and a fishy smell permeated the air. Zhong Huai's eyes were red like a killing god. His beard fluttered in the wind, and the blood moon grew bigger and bigger. It was mixed with countless broken trees and gravel. Zhong Huai leaped up high and clapped his palms. A huge blood energy ball blasted towards Li Zhangqing with a rumbling sound. I am afraid of you. Today, I will make sure you lose your life here. Li Zhangqing also seemed to be possessed. It was unknown when a blood-red long saber appeared in his hand. The long saber flickered with blood light, and when he slashed out, It carried a ferocious scarlet saber light. It was like the prowess of Xingtian battle god. Light burst out, and the pressure was impressive. It directly cleaved the air, creating spatial ripples. Instantly, a huge blood-red whirlpool appeared in the air. With a thunderous momentum, Li Zhangqing's figure flashed out from the whirlpool. He instantly dodged the Blood Moon's attack and charged towards Zhonghuai. Rumble! The Blood Moon smashed onto the ground like a cannonball. Its aura shook the surroundings, and the shockwaves shook the heavens and earth. The ground that was smashed instantly cracked like a spiderweb. It was dozens of meters long, and the cracks were like ghastly ravines. Such a confrontation shook the void. The surrounding wind and clouds surged, and the powerful wind blasted in all directions like a storm. Boom! There was another loud sound, and the ground collapsed. At this moment, the ground was like paper, unable to withstand the continuous bombardment of two Origin Emperor experts. It turned into a pit that was dozens of meters deep. It was difficult to see the bottom with the naked eye. Looking at the dense forest again, as the terrifying energy wind spread out, the huge rocks and trees had already turned into dust. As for Blood Sun Sect's Wu Jiuyou and the other weaker people, they were buried in the huge pit before they could even react. It was unknown whether they were dead or alive. The change in an instant shocked Su Yi. He took a step with the Fuyao 100 transformation steps and circulated his vitality to the extreme. He dodged the Blood Sun Sect's energy storm and brought Feng Qi to a safer place at lightning speed. Su Yi's eyes flashed. Looking at everyone's strange phenomenon, Su Yi smelled an extremely dangerous aura. Is this really the Mystic Gate illusory spirit world? Is there really such a powerful illusory Mystic Gate illusory spirit world in this world? Chapter 1293. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. Standing beside Su Yi, Feng Qi's pretty face was as white as snow without a trace of blood. Her eyes began to wander, her lips were tightly pursed, and her eyebrows were tightly knitted. She looked listless. While muttering to herself, vitality was generated under Feng Qi's feet. She spun around aimlessly in the dense forest. Black qi surrounded her body, and a huge amount of black qi spread throughout the dense forest. Su Yi looked at Feng Qi's head in shock as a black bead condensed above her head again. It slowly stopped 3 feet away from her Baihui acupoint and rotated faintly. It was like a devil's eye that looked down on the world, overlooking the ugliness of all living things. The dense forest that was originally filled with spirit qi began to darken. For a moment, evil winds began to blow. The soul-nurturing pearl was like a huge magnet, attracting the remnant souls from all directions to run towards it. However, the remnant souls in the pearl were like evil spirits trying to escape from outside. For a moment, Feng Qi's soul-nurturing bead released a dazzling black light. The remnant souls in the bead scattered in all directions, and a black soul mist swept through the entire dense forest like an energy storm. The ferocious remnant souls invaded everyone's spiritual sea, biting and nibbling at their souls. Feng Qi's delicate and pitiful figure seemed to have turned into a demon that could control the world's poison. It was incomparably demonic. TSK. Cries and howls sounded one after another in the dense forest. Roar! The black wind blew, and the black mist under Feng Qi's feet lifted her up like a giant palm. Feng Qi's eyes were tightly shut, and her pretty face was pale. There was a trace of undetectable pain in her eyes. Why? Why can everyone accept me? I've recovered, but I can't go back to the Feng family village anymore. Lord Merciless West, Lord Su Yi, you saved me, and I'll repay you in this life. I'll work hard to cultivate and not be a burden to you. I'll practice hard, and Qi won't be a burden to you. As Feng Qi's melancholy intensified, the remnant soul seemed to have gained energy and began to wreak havoc. It wandered around with a destructive aura. Wherever it passed, the plants withered and the people who had lost their minds became like walking corpses. Not good, calamity, Qi poisoned soul. Feng Qi has also lost her soul. Su Yi's heart skipped a beat as his mind raced. He knew that if this continued, everyone would lose their lives here. There's no other way. Su Yi furrowed his brows and gritted his teeth. Primordial Qi swept under his feet, and a cold light rose in his eyes as he pounced on Feng Qi. The remnant souls around Feng Qi acted as if they had seen food and pounced on Su Yi. The black fog surged up into the sky, and the ear-piercing cries of ghosts could be heard. With the black fog below and the spiritual Qi above, one was black and one was white. The dense forest that was originally full of vitality became strange and evil, making people unable to help but crawl. Su Yi was a soul controller master, so he was not afraid of being eroded by the remnant souls. He simply circulated the Origin Supreme technique to the extreme, and at the same time, the Heaven Origin Demon Soul in his mind shone with purple light. Unknowingly, Su Yi felt a mysterious and vigorous ancient power resonating with the Origin Supreme technique. Even the spiritual energy in the surrounding forest had become close to him, and his chaotic mind had become clear. Su Yi looked coldly at the chaos in front of him, and he already had an answer in his heart. This is definitely not a man-made, mystic, illusionary spirit world. The distant ancient aura was very similar to the Golden Dragon mystery realm that handsome Su had brought him to. Could this be another trial plane created by a god's mystery realm? In his mind, the Heaven Origin Demon Soul was constantly circulating. When the surrounding remnant souls got close to Su Yi, they paused and were obviously afraid of him. I see. The corner of his mouth curled up. It turned out that the remnant souls were afraid of his Heaven Origin Demon Soul. Under the Origin Supreme technique, the ancient aura allowed him to be at ease and no longer create illusions. Since the remnant souls were afraid of him, Su Yi was even more fearless. Su Yi no longer hesitated and instantly arrived near Su Yi. The remnant souls were like demons as they desperately pounced on Su Yi, wanting to devour him. Su Yi stood in the void like an old pine tree in meditation. His soul energy did not move, and no matter how strong the wind and rain hit him, he remained unmoved. His gaze was sharp like lightning, and his origin energy surged, causing Su Yi's robe to flutter. Su Yi shook his arm, and a palm of fire attribute origin energy swept towards the remnant souls like a storm. Blazing fire, heaven's net palm. This palm technique was comprehended by Su Yi from the demon spirit truth. When he used it back then, its power was already extraordinary. Now that Su Yi was already at the 9th level of the Origin Void stage, it was even more incomparable when he used it again. Countless palm shadows covered the sky and covered the earth. Vaguely, the palm techniques contained the attributes of wind and thunder. The sound of wind and thunder resounded, rising with the wind. The endless palm shadows brazenly landed on the remnant soul with a destructive force, enveloping it completely. Boom! Break! In an instant, a scarlet light blazed like the sun as if it had the power to destroy heaven and earth had descended. It completely devoured the remnant souls that were enveloped in the scarlet light. The other remnant souls that had yet to pounce on Su Yi instantly fled in all directions. How would they dare to come forward to court death? Retreat. Su Yi circulated the Origin Supreme technique. The white mist and scarlet origin energy around him twined around Su Yi. It was as if he had a divine ring around him, giving off an imposing pressure. At this moment, Su Yi was like a young god of war. The remnant souls that were close to him were immediately suppressed by the mighty aura and turned into nothingness. A bright light flashed across Su Yi's eyes. He took advantage of the momentum and leaped forward to embrace Feng Qi in his arms. He brought along an imposing aura that intimidated the remnant souls and landed steadily on the flat ground. Su Yi shouted softly as he circulated the Origin Supreme technique in his hand. He resisted the remnant soul's attack while he slowly transferred origin energy from the great void divine ocean into Feng Qi-er's body. Feng Qi-er's pale face slowly regained some color. Feng Qi-er, wake up, wake up. Sui called out to Feng Qi-er softly. We have no choice. Feng Qi-er, this is Feng Qi-er's fate. We've taken care of her for 19 years. We didn't take care of her for 19 years in vain. Fourth aunt. The corner of Feng Qi-er's mouth twitched slightly. She looked at the departing figure and walked home like a zombie. Feng Qi-er, I beg you. Ask them to let us go. We didn't do it on purpose. The first elder's humble voice sounded as if it was yesterday. Yes, I can exchange my life for theirs. Feng Qi-er's eyes were firm without any hesitation. We're also doing it for our people. Quick, kill Feng Qi. Ew. Why? Why? Feng Qi-er's brows were tightly knitted and there were tears at the corner of her eyes. It was obvious that she was suffering from unspeakable pain in the illusion. Sui saw clearly. After all, Feng Qi did not have the experience of living two lives like him. It would be hard for anyone to get over being killed and framed by their loved ones. You must help her get out of this predicament. This is her inner demon. Otherwise, she will never be able to become Big Brother's disciple. Big Brother, you owe me again. Sui shook his head and smiled bitterly. After a few breaths, the Origin Supreme technique allowed Feng Qi-er to gradually regain her consciousness. Her eyes became bright, and the black fog gradually disappeared. The remnant soul was gradually absorbed into the soul-nurturing pearl. On the other side, the people from Green Cloud Palace and Nine Stars Valley had already fainted. Zhong Huai and Li Zhongqing from the Blood Sun sect had also fainted due to serious injuries. Only a few people with lower cultivation were left walking around in circles like zombies. Feng Qi stared blankly at Sui in front of her. Her mind was blank, looking at the people on the ground who were on the verge of death and were in tatters. Feng Qi realized what she had just done. Her jade-like face contorted, her silver teeth clenched, and tears flashed in her eyes. Drip, drip, bean-sized teardrops flowed down. Feng Qi bent her knees and buried herself in them. She did not dare to look at the scene in front of her. Her soft hands were tightly clenched, and her joints were pale. Woo-woo, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. I've harmed everyone. Chapter 1294. It has nothing to do with you. Sui softly comforted her. After crying for a while, Feng Qi looked up with tear-stained eyes. After going through so much, Feng Qi could finally cry for once. Perhaps crying once was the best release for her. Sui waited for Feng Qi to calm down before patting her shoulder and chuckling. Yes, this has nothing to do with you, so don't worry too much. Feng Qi sniffed and said with a trembling voice, Really? None of this has anything to do with me? Feng Qi looked at Sui eagerly, hoping to get a positive answer. Sui looked at Feng Qi with tears still hanging from the corner of his eyes. His red lips were like a red plum blossom in the snow. His smile disappeared as he said, Yes, from the moment we came in, we were already trapped in an illusion. Moreover, this illusion was similar to a secret realm's trial. Trial? Feng Qi wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes and was slightly startled. Yes, we, including everyone else, were trapped in an illusion the moment we entered the forest. Moreover, this illusion did not create a scene that everyone was afraid of. Instead, it created the most fervent desire in everyone's heart. You must have dreamed of the Feng family village earlier, right? Feng Qi recalled the various experiences in the Feng family village and choked with sobs again. This is your inner demon. You have always wanted to be recognized by everyone and return to the Feng family village to become the Feng Qi in the eyes of others. Sui paused for a moment. He looked at Feng Qi, who was lost in thought, and continued. This illusion seemed to specifically outline everyone's inner desires. Greed, anger, and infatuation, wanting to obtain something but not being able to obtain it. Love gives birth to hatred, and hatred gives birth to resentment. Those who are trapped in this illusion will turn all their emotions into negative emotions and vent them out without any scruples. The more unattainable one is, the more deeply trapped they will be unable to extricate themselves. Su-yi then pointed at the Origin Void Realm cultivators who were still wandering around. Shang Wangchen and Shui Yuechan were also among them. Some were crying in the ruins, while others were searching for something in the forest. All of them were unable to extricate themselves. Who can avoid a person's inner demon? Feng Qi'er, the past is the past. Don't keep living in resentment, and don't live in the eyes of others. You are you. Su-yi closed his eyes as a faint light fluctuation around his body. Feng Qi'er's face stiffened, and he couldn't help but fall into a trance. This was a logic that he had never thought of before. At this moment, the young man had also become distant. His eyebrows were sharp, and his eyes were bright. His devilish eyes carried a trace of maturity that exceeded that of ordinary people. He had shocked him time and time again, and he had saved him time and time again. Feng Qi originally thought that by cultivating diligently, concealing his spirit and qi, and cultivating without distractions, he would be repaying Lord Shi Wuqing and Su-yi. It would be the best footnote of his painful memories. 2. Actually, you know what Big Brother means. He taught you the calamity qi poison soul cultivation technique and helped you refine the heavenly fiend soul devouring pill. His feelings for you are far more than just a savior. It's a master-disciple relationship. Master-disciple? Feng Qi'er's eyes widened. A trace of surprise flashed in her eyes. She had never thought of having a master-disciple relationship. It was also something she didn't dare to hope for. Her chest heaved up and down. That's right. Big Brother has always had this intention, but you pretended to understand. Su-yi said faintly. You are all people with great abilities. How can I be on par with you? As for being Lord Merciless West's disciple, I don't dare to ask for it. I only hope that I can repay Lord Merciless West's kindness with my whole life. Feng Qi'er said timidly. A trace of disappointment flashed in her eyes. Feng Qi'er knew that she came from a humble background and had a congenital illness. It was already a great fortune for her to be able to help Lord Merciless West. So this is your inner demon. You are you, Big Brother, and I have never treated you as a servant. You are the only Feng Qi'er in this world. You are the Bawang Sect's Feng Qi'er. You are the direct disciple of Yama Merciless West. From now on, live your own life. Whoever dares to humiliate you will pay back 1,000 times. Whoever dares to belittle you will pay back 1,000 times. If the mountains and seas bully you, I will flatten them. If the heavens and earth suppress you, I will fight the heavens and earth to the death. As long as you are alive, the Bawang sect will protect you. Remember, you are you. You are not a burden to anyone. Su-yi's eyes were firm, and his voice was clear but sonorous. He knew that these words were not only for Feng Qi'er, but also for Su Wan'er, Fatty Wong, and the Su family. At this moment, Su-yi understood that he had already become the leader of a sect. The sect leader of the Bawang sect, the sect leader of the Tian Yao school, and the young master of the Su family. The originally weak and insignificant youth had grown through countless heaven-defying battles. His future path would be even more difficult. However, with his courage and determination, Su-yi would be a peerless genius and achieve a hegemony. Feng Qi'er's crescent moon-like eyes became moist again. She looked at the youth in front of her with an imposing aura and a firm tone. She believed that he could do it because Su-yi had already brought her too many miracles. Feng Qi'er also knew that she would no longer be anyone's subordinate. She also had her own value. She was the direct disciple of Merciless West, and she was also a member of the Bawang sect. She could also use her painful shortcomings to help those who she was willing to sacrifice her life for. This is great. So I am who I am. When Feng Qi'er thought of this, her delicate and beautiful face twitched again, and she was about to cry. Pitter-patter. Feng Chi-er's eyes gradually became confused, but the corners of her mouth curled up into a smile that had never been seen before. She was free and at ease, and it was a happiness that she had finally released. It was a happiness that she had never felt before. Su, Big Brother Su, I understand. After I leave this place, I will worship Merciless West and won't let you down. Thank you. Feng Chi-er sobbed, and her crystal-clear eyes were as clear as the moon. Great. I also have a good sister. Su Yi's starry eyes turned into a crescent moon, and he was extremely happy. Suddenly, the crystal-clear tears had already wet Feng Chi-er's clothes and dripped down her jade gauze dress to the ground. The two of them looked at each other and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Oomph. Cunning human, the first thing I saw when I woke up was that you were deceiving a little girl again. A voice that hadn't been heard for a long time faintly echoed in Su Yi's ears. Then, a graceful figure with straight and slender legs, jade-like skin, bright eyes, white teeth, thick eyelashes, and a charming gaze appeared again, lingering in his heart. That pair of sexy and plump lips constantly revealed a myriad of amorous feelings that lingered in his heart. Qinxue, you're awake? He was pleasantly surprised and very surprised. Who allowed you to call me Qinxue? Ling Qinxue was at a loss when she heard Su Yi call her that for the first time after waking up. When did you wake up? Ahem. Just now. Did I wake up too early? Feng Chi stared blankly at Su Yi, who was talking to the air. She thought that Su Yi had entered the illusion again, and her expression suddenly changed. No. Just in time. I've been waiting for you. Su Yi waved his hand and said. There was no one in front of him, and his behavior was very strange. Don't talk nonsense. The little human sister is asking you a question. Ling Qinshue's voice paused, and she was obviously panicking. Chapter 1295. Big Brother Su Yi, are you all right? Feng Chi looked at Su Yi suspiciously, afraid that Su Yi would enter the illusion again. Su Yi then realized that he had been talking to the air. It looked weird to others. He wrinkled his nose and smiled awkwardly. I'm fine. Let's think of a way to get out. Su Yi looked at the dilapidated secret realm. There were broken rocks and trees everywhere, and there were huge pits one after another. He couldn't stay here for too long. It would be dangerous if he stayed any longer. He immediately gathered his chi and used the primordial supreme technique to sense the distribution of spirit chi in the forest. At the same time, the voice sounded in his mind again. Where is this? Ling Qinshuo asked faintly. This is a secret realm. As soon as I entered with these people, I was bewitched. These people seem to have suffered quite a bit of damage to their souls. Those with strong cultivations won't have any problems leaving this place. But those who have already turned into walking corpses, I'm afraid their souls will be much weaker than ordinary people. After Su Yi finished speaking, he looked at the wandering experts and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He still had some lingering fear from escaping danger. There's demonic chi here, Ling Qinshuo said softly. Demonic chi? Su Yi asked. Yes, the spirit chi here is unusual. It contains a trace of the immemorial demonic beast's aura. This place also seems to be a spirit space set up by the sovereign of the demon clan. It's different from the illusory spirit world formation that you humans use to control with spirit stones. Ling Qinshuo said softly. Her gentle and pleasant voice lingered in Su Yi's ears. Su Yi heard this voice that he hadn't heard for a long time, and his heart trembled. After a while, he quickly recovered and nodded. I can sense it. It shouldn't be the illusory spirit world formation. There's no gate of life or gate of death. The entire space is formed naturally and filled with spirit chi. It's like a sealed cultivation space. It's similar to your mysterious space, Ling Qinshuo said subconsciously. Su Yi pondered. This place had its own space, which was similar to the space brought about by his mysterious light. However, the mysterious space could be controlled by him. Could it be that this space could also be controlled? It's just that the master of this space wasn't him. Qinshuo, what do we get out? Being addressed by Su Yi in such a manner again, she was somewhat stunned that she had never been addressed this way by a 15-year-old boy in all her years of cultivation. Qinxue, don't call me that. Ling Qinxue reprimanded softly. If Su Yi could see Ling Qinshue's appearance now, he would see that Ling Qinshue's wild face had long been flushed red. The pink clouds had spread to her snow-white neck, and the corners of her eyes were filled with warmth. Big brother Su Yi, look. Feng Qi, who was standing at the side, raised her hand and pointed at the spot where she had just cried. Following the direction that Feng Qi pointed at, the moisture in the soil that was originally soaked began to evaporate. Crystal-clear teardrops rose from the soil, and a deep black spatial crack appeared on the soil. It was profound and mysterious. The constantly fluctuating spatial ripples entwined around the crack like electric arcs. The crystal-clear teardrops kept rising and adhered to the ripples, forming an exquisite and lustrous water curtain. Just as Su Yi was at a loss for words, the water curtain kept extending from the middle to the two sides, and the spatial crack kept expanding. After a few breaths, it kept expanding into a huge water curtain arch door, and the spatial ripples kept fluctuating like electric arcs. This is the exit. Su Yi looked at the strange scene in front of him and was speechless. Ling Qinshuo opened her pink lips and said, "It seems to be summoning us. I just woke up and have only regained my consciousness. I don't have much strength. You have to be careful after you go in." Ling Qinshuo was about to tell Su Yi to be careful because Su Yi's strength was still too weak, but she was surprised to sense that Su Yi's aura was already at the 9th level of the Origin Void stage. The vigorous and unstoppable Origin energy in Su Yi's body surged. Even the strength of his flesh and blood was much stronger than the demon cub's body. "This is truly a mysterious person," Ling Qinshu muttered. Su Yi took a deep breath and said to Feng Qi, "Let's go. That should be the exit." After he finished speaking, he looked at the people from the Azure Cloud Hall who were still lying not far away. Su Yi was temporarily powerless and could only leave with Feng Qi. Perhaps when he broke through the secret realm, the soul suppression on their bodies would be lifted, and they would be able to escape unscathed. He simply went to Wei Hong's side and took out a few bottles of pills from his space bag and placed them beside Wei Hong. He said softly, "Elder Wei, I'll go first. Take care of your sect. I'll pay you a visit when I get out." As soon as he finished speaking, he cupped his fists at Elder Wei and entered the spatial rift with Feng Qi. As soon as they entered the spatial rift, it was as if there was a huge suction force that completely enveloped Su Yi and Feng Qi. The spatial rift was also sucked in by the two of them and gradually closed. When the last bit of light closed, the spatial rift completely disappeared. After being sucked into the spatial rift, the surroundings were pitch black and strong winds blew. Su Yi felt as if he had entered a spatial tunnel, and there were constantly huge rocks flying past him. If he was careless, the huge rocks in the spatial tunnel would smash Su Yi to the point of being unable to heal. Su Yi held Feng Qi's hand tightly. The two of them were like pieces of paper as they went around aimlessly in the tunnel. Feng Qi was only at the Yuanjin realm. Even though she was behind Su Yi, the huge pressure in the tunnel made Feng Qi uncomfortable. After a while, painful groans could be heard. It turned out that the strong winds in the tunnel had no direction. Under the influence of the wind, the constantly flying huge rocks and the huge bones of demonic beasts were enough to destroy a person's body. Su Yi complained incessantly. He regretted not putting Feng Qi into the mysterious space. It would be much easier for him to travel alone in the spatial tunnel with the help of the supreme art of chaos. Su Yi's expression was solemn. Huge rocks that were several feet tall were constantly smashing towards Su Yi. Su Yi knew that things were not going well. He activated the supreme art of chaos to protect himself, and fire attribute energy was generated. Without any hesitation, Su Yi's destructive and majestic aura burst out. He stepped out with the swaying 100 steps and steadied himself in the strong winds. In an instant, he pushed his palms forward. A long red thunderbolt shot out from his palms and swept toward the huge rocks like a dragon. Boom! The huge rocks turned into dust under Su Yi's ferocious energy and scattered in the strong winds. The terrifying aura shook the void, and the strong winds became even more bitingly cold. Whoosh whoosh! In an instant, 7 or 8 huge rocks were smashing toward Su Yi. Not good. There are more and more flying rocks. Su Yi stepped into the void. His eyes darkened. He activated the supreme art of chaos at full force and released a majestic and destructive aura. Boom! Waves of fire, attribute energy, surged out. Su Yi's figure was like lightning. The swaying 100 steps were unpredictable as he constantly dodged the small rocks. Su Yi gathered energy in his palms. Flames seemed to be spreading out from his palms. The blazing golden-red aura was burning the surrounding air. He blasted one palm after another at the huge rocks that kept flying toward him. Fire Shadow Fist. Between his palms, there seemed to be a huge heat flow that kept compressing and expanding. The flying flames smashed onto the huge rocks and exploded like cannonballs. Rumble. Bang. Chapter 1296. Su Yi tightly protected Feng Qi behind him. The sound of wind and thunder kept ringing in his ears, and the whistling wind made his face hurt. Su Yi only felt that this place was very strange. He had to use all his strength to break the boulder, which showed how hard the boulder was. Su Yi didn't know that the boulder had been nurtured by the spirit Qi in this space tunnel for tens of thousands of years. With a dull sound, a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Su Yi's abdomen was attacked by the flying boulder. A beast bone instantly hit Su Yi, who couldn't avoid it, and the surrounding air whistled. Big brother Su, don't worry about me. Feng Qi saw that Su Yi was in a difficult situation. Because he kept taking care of her, Feng Qi felt even more powerless after being hit by the boulder. Her voice was a little hoarse. Su Yi stopped and swallowed a mouthful of blood. At this time, Su Yi's hair was flying in the wind. Under his long eyelashes, his black eyes were solemn and dignified. Ling Qinxue took in every moment. Su Yi, who she hadn't seen for a long time, was still as stubborn as before. His figure looked a lot stronger. His green clothes set off Su Yi's tall and slender figure. Ling Qinxue felt a wave of sorrow in her heart. What had he experienced during this time? Su Yi's eyes were filled with determination and hope. He looked sideways at the weak Feng Qi and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His lips curved slightly. It's okay. I'm here. I'll protect you. Hearing this, Feng Qi's beautiful eyes trembled. Looking at Su Yi's calm eyes, her chaotic thoughts gradually calmed down. She knew that only by being calm could she not cause trouble for Su Yi. Su Yi and Feng Qi had only been in the space tunnel for a few breaths, but it felt like decades. Huge flying rocks and sharp beast bones flew past their ears amidst the astral winds. The whistling wind made Feng Qi's breathing quicken. Ling Qinxue looked at Su Yi's stubborn figure, and her heart trembled. She pouted and said angrily, "Do you like to show off in front of little girls?" Su Yi's eyes flashed with a faint light, like the deep and mature waters of the blue ocean. Su Yi softly said, "If you were a little girl back then just think of me as someone who likes to show off." You. Ling Qinxue was about to flare up, but she curled her lips and no longer looked at Su Yi. Su Yi's words reminded Ling Qinxue of the scene where Su Yi and Su Tianke used their insignificant cultivation to protect her from the blazing dragon emperor. In the end, in order to protect Su Yi and that little bird that called itself Grandpa Sparrow, he self-detonated his Yao Dan. At that time, wasn't Su Yi showing off? At that time, wasn't he showing off as well? The scene of that day was still vivid in her mind. No one would have thought that the dignified demon emperor, the descendant of the 9 spirit links, would have such a deep connection with this weak but determined human in front of her. What's wrong with me? Ling Qinxue raised her nose. Ling Qinxue was also puzzled. It had been a long time since her last recovery, but she felt closer to Su-yi than before. It seemed like he was not as annoying as before. His showing off, his bragging, and his actions were all so natural to Ling Qianxue. Feng-chi, be careful. The space tunnel might be stopping soon. Su-yi's gaze was cold. He looked at the flying boulders and beast bones vigilantly to prevent himself from being hit. As time passed, Su-yi noticed that the speed of the boulders was decreasing and the number of beast bones was decreasing. There was only one possibility. Su-yi and Feng-chi had safely passed through the center of the space tunnel. They were now at the edge of the hidden space, and the entrance might not be far away. Su-yi looked down. There's a crack there, too. Ling Qianxue's beautiful eyes were wide open as she called out softly. At that moment, Ling Qianxue was more concerned about Su-yi's life than anyone else. It was not only because of the strange feeling, but also because the two of them had a contract. As long as Su-yi was safe and sound, Ling Qianxue could use Su-yi's mysterious space to recover her soul and body. Following the direction that Ling Qianxue was pointing at, Su-yi noticed an extremely thin crack not far away in the illusory darkness. It was the same as the space crack that they came from. There were electric arcs on it, and the electric arcs that looked like little snakes were particularly dazzling in the dark void. Su-yi was overjoyed. He stepped out with the Fuyao's 100 transformation steps, and a pair of fiery red wings spread out on his back. The wings, which were as thin as a cicada's wings, kept flapping. Su-yi and Feng-chi immediately arrived in front of the spatial crack along with the astral wind in the spatial tunnel, but they were suddenly repelled by a huge force. Su-yi's pupils shrank. He poured his yuan qi into his legs and stepped out. He tried to test it more than a dozen times, but he was thrown back like a sandbag by a huge force. Su-yi's eyes revealed a strange look. He looked at the space crack, and his heart was shocked. Could it be that this was not an entrance that could be entered and exited as one wished? Su-yi frowned as he carefully recalled the scene when they first entered the space tunnel. Feng-chi, can you still cry? What? Cry? Cry for me. Your tears just now were the catalyst that brought us into the space tunnel. Can you cry again now? Can you use your tears to bring us out? The sound of electric arcs accompanied by the astral wind whistled nonstop. The strong electric light shone on Feng-chi's snow-white face. Su-yi looked at Feng-chi with a burning gaze, hoping that Feng-chi could cry again. Maybe the two of them would be able to get out. After a long while, the two of them looked at each other. Apart from the astral wind, there was no other sound in the space tunnel. The only thing that accompanied the wind was the unique orchid fragrance of a young girl. Feng-chi shook her head helplessly. Her pair of watery eyes looked at the eager Su-yi. Feng-chi suddenly realized that the big brother in front of her also had a cute side. She smiled and said, "Brother Su, suddenly I really can't cry anymore." Ling Qianxue, who was at the side, was amused. She chuckled and said, "You are really a strange human. One moment you make me cry, and the next you make me feel small. Isn't this torture? Then how can we get out? That's how I came in just now." Su-yi scratched his head and said dejectedly. After a long while, there was still no sound. Su-yi took a deep breath and asked Feng-chi to step back. He thought that since they couldn't get out, they could only use force. Feng-chi immediately took a few steps back while Su-yi circulated the Origin Supreme technique. A scarlet fire-attributed radiance that was incomparably blazing was accompanied by a vast and mighty power. A huge Emperor Sparrow phantom appeared behind Su-yi. An ancient pressure surged out from Su-yi's feet. Mysterious talismans gradually emerged from the light under his feet, wrapping Su-yi's entire body. In an instant, Su-yi's entire temperament changed drastically. The strong wind blew, and Su-yi's black hair fluttered in the wind. Su-yi was like an ancient war god that had awakened from a deep slumber. He seemed powerful and majestic, like a god that had awakened. The electric arcs in the spatial crack seemed to have sensed something. They reflected the aura on Su-yi's body and overlapped. The space crack and Su Yi's Emperor Sparrow Phantom were like phoenixes pecking at pearls. Gorgeous energy surged. Just the pressure alone shook the entire space. This, Ling Qinshua's heart was already in shock. Her eyes flashed with splendor. As the dim phantom appeared in the space, Ling Qinshua's heart also began to tremble. This was the pressure from the ancient demon clan. If she wasn't part of the ancient demon clan, she would have already submitted in fear like the ordinary demon beasts. Chapter 1297. Su Yi once again displayed his amazing talent, causing Ling Qianxue, who hadn't seen him for a long time, to be shocked again and again. Su Yi's aura had already reached its peak. His ragged clothes fluttered in the wind, and the light in his eyes was bright and dazzling. Accompanied by the clanging of wind and thunder, Su Yi's figure leaped up and continuously twisted his body. His figure crisscrossed as he flew down from the top. 9 extinction shaking heaven and earth. In the sky, bolts of lightning split vertically and horizontally in the sky like terrifying electric dragons. The momentum was overbearing and shook the universe. Su Yi was wrapped in a terrifying aura. The Emperor Sparrow's shadow was dazzling, and the sound of a phoenix's cry resounded in the sky. It was accompanied by countless footprints that landed in the space crack. The terrifying pressure filled the universe, and the lightning on the space crack wreaked havoc. The sonorous buzzes seemed to be able to pierce through the clouds. One kick after another. Each kick was 10 times more terrifying than the last, and it produced a heaven-shaking rumble. Feng Qi couldn't help but feel her scalp go numb when she saw this scene. She staggered a few steps, and her face turned pale. Brother Su Yi is too strong. Feng Qi exclaimed in her heart. As the huge pressure fell on the space crack, Su Yi retracted his hand seal and retracted his vitality. He took a deep breath. Then, his eyes were like cold swords as he looked at the space crack in silence. His gaze trembled. There was only the whistling of the wind in the air, and there was another awkward silence. A heart-wrenching scream came from the space, and Feng Qi quickly covered her ears. How do I get out of here? Su Yi's face turned ashen. In the afterglow of the setting sun, the reefs by the sea were shrouded in a layer of orange-red halo. The vast horizon in the distance gradually sank, and the red sun was like a fireball. The golden light rippled and shone on the sparkling blue waves. There was a dangerous cliff on the sea. The cliff protruded from the body of the mountain. At this time, it was also dyed with golden light under the gorgeous afterglow. Around the cliff, there were verdant trees and gorgeous flowers. On the dangerous cliff stood an old man who looked to be in his twilight years. The old man's hair and beard were all white, and his body was tall and slender. He stood tall in the sea breeze and the sunset glow, but the wrinkles on his face declared that this old man had lived for a long time. Her white hair danced in the sea breeze. Her pure white clothes were simple and unadorned. Under the illumination of the sunset, it was as if she was shrouded in a layer of fiery red mist. She looked like an immortal in the realm. The mysterious old man narrowed his eyes as he looked at the distant sea and sky. The scene inside the spatial rift was being displayed in the distant sea and sky. A heart-wrenching roar resounded through the border between the sky and the sea. The images of Su Yi and Feng Qi appeared in the void, illuminated by the setting sun. The old man's expression was solemn as he watched everything that happened in the spatial rift. Emperor Sparrow's inheritance. The old man stroked his silver beard and murmured. Yes, he obtained the Emperor Sparrow's inheritance from a secret realm. He also obtained the blood essence of our race's phoenix. A slightly immature voice came from beneath the old man's feet. No wonder, the old man said thoughtfully. The immature voice came from a young man beneath the old man's feet. He was about 12 or 13 years old, and his eyes were clear and bright. He had a handsome face. The young man's brows revealed a maturity that was different from his age. Under the sunset glow, the young man's eyes were as bright as the sun. Although he was young, there was a terrifying demonic aura around him. It was otherworldly, unlike the ordinary demonic beasts of the barbarian race. Instead, he had the demeanor of a supreme ruler that dominated the world. It made people feel numb. If there was a peerless expert beside him, they would definitely be able to sense how terrifying this young man's cultivation was. At the age of 12 or 13, he had already reached a realm that ordinary demonic beasts couldn't reach, the mid-stage of the demon ancestor realm. The young man's expression was calm as he sat cross-legged. He yawned towards the distant sky and said faintly, "My boss is all right, right? Can he come here after passing the trial?" Clap, clap. Interesting. He is indeed a special human. He has the demonic aura and is extremely talented. He is definitely a top existence among humans, and there seems to be a soul in his body. Not bad. He has already passed my first trial. The old man laughed and clapped his hands. Then let my boss continue. The young man looked at the old man fervently. In the space tunnel, he looked at the unresponsive space crack and frowned. The lack of a countermeasure for a long time made even angrier. At this moment, the electric arc of the space crack fluctuated, and the wind in the space tunnel intensified. The entire space began to tremble, and Yi's expression changed drastically as his body swayed. This is... He touched the tip of his nose and pondered. He quickly regained his senses as the space crack in front of him expanded rapidly. The void distorted and outlined a dark, circular arch door. It was exactly the same as the one they had just entered. We can finally get out. Yi's eyes lit up. With that thought, Yi's vitality chi swept out. His feet left the ground, and his energy swirled in all directions. He pulled Feng-Chi into the space crack like an arrow released from a bow. After passing through the crack, the space crack closed again. The space rippled and sent Yi and Feng-Chi to the foot of a mountain. Night fell, and the stars shone brightly. The moonlight was high in the sky, and silver light poured down like a waterfall, illuminating the surroundings. The mottled shadows swayed. A faint moonlight shone on Yi and Feng-Chi's faces like a veil. Unlike the gusts of wind in the spatial crack, this place was ethereal and dreamlike. The gentle night breeze caressed their faces. Yi looked around. It turned out that he and Feng-Chi had already passed through the dense forest and arrived at the foot of the mountain. Thousands of blue peaks and steep mountain ranges were in sight. The tallest peak was right in front of them, and milky white mist floated in the shade of the mountain. After the life and death battle in the dense forest and the tunnel, the time in the secret realm had changed from the bright sky to the starlight of the night. Brother Yi, are we still in the secret realm? Feng-Chi also recognized that the mountain range in front of her was the one she had seen with the people from the Green Cloud Palace on the slope. There was a slight fluctuation in Yi's clear eyes, like the thousands of peaks and waves in the dark night, moving up and down under the gentle breeze. It was quiet nearby, and only the stars in the sky were accompanying them. The peaks and waves of the mountains were like willows swaying in the wind, and the graceful figures of fairies in the painting swayed under the cold moon. The dense forest in the distance was faintly filled with the low roar of beasts, shaking the forest. For a moment, Yi's nervous thoughts also relaxed. Yes, it seems that we still have to cross this mountain range. As long as we reach the highest peak, we should be able to find the greatest opportunity in this secret realm. Yi looked up at the mountain peak in front of him, knowing that there must be a great secret hidden there. Thus, he decided to stay in the secret realm. Gnome slang. Let's rest here for a while. When dawn comes, we will set off to the peak. Exhaustion and hardship had already appeared on Feng-Chi's face. Although Yi had always been in front of her, in terms of cultivation, Yi was far more powerful than her. At this time, Feng-Chi could not rely on breathing to maintain the consumption of her body's functions. Chapter 1298. The moon was warm, and the stars were shining. The moonlight shone through the tree branches, forming mottled spots of light that complemented the airflow and clouds. Sui also found a flat area and leaned against a tree. He adjusted his breathing and circulated the Origin Supreme technique with all his might. The crimson light faintly showed the birth of a divine bird and the cries of dragons and phoenixes. The divine halo around his body was fluctuating, carrying with it a dignified and destructive aura. It emitted an incomparably domineering and destructive pressure, and an astonishing aura filled the air. A tall and slender figure was majestic under the moonlight. The monstrous terror made the barbarian beasts in the distant forest uneasy. They all felt an incomparable fear, and the beasts roared in the forest. Compared to Feng Qi, who was in the Yuanjun realm, Su Yi's great void deep sea was complete. An endless stream of Yuan Qi gathered in his dantian along with the moonlight. After successfully cultivating the great void deep sea, Su Yi's dantian Qi sea had already turned into an endless divine sea. His body contained surging Yuan Qi, which was far stronger than those of the same cultivation level. As Su Yi retracted his hand seal, he exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. The energy of heaven and earth filled his body, directly transforming into Yuan Qi that rushed into his limbs and bones. The sore feeling in his body was completely recovered. Su Yi's eyes became clear again. Beside him, Feng Qi was still meditating. There were still some hours before daybreak. Looking at the bright stars in the sky, Su Yi was a little lost in thought. He then found a place not too far away from Feng Qi and sat down. In the blue sky, the stars shone. After looking at them for a long time, they looked like the eyes of the people Su Yi missed. Thinking back to his journey, from the barbarian city to the barbarian demon forest, from the divine sword sect to the chaos region, the Su Yi who had been exiled to the barbarian demon forest for kissing Lu Ruashi on the street, he had been through thousands of mountains and rivers. Even though he had the qualifications to be a servant, Su Yi had never given up. Battle Saint Mountain, fighting in all directions, establishing the Overlord sect, all of these were things that he had never dared to imagine. Holy Mountain. Su Yi thought of the Holy Mountain, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a sneer. Thinking of the ugly deeds of the Holy Mountain, one day, I will destroy your sect and slaughter your entire sect. However, when he thought of that figure and the letter she left behind, Su Yi felt an inexplicable struggle. He thought back to the sacred martial arts assembly where the five brothers were in high spirits and became famous throughout the world. He also received the legendary title of King of Geniuses. Now that Su Chun and Yin Lin were nowhere to be found, Su Yi believed that as long as he was strong enough, he would definitely be able to make a name for himself in this world, and the reunion of his brothers would be just around the corner. What about the weaker members of the Su family? Su Wan'er and Wang Shangwu had entered the barbarian demon forest for him, and had faced many dangers. They were all people who treated him extremely well. Are they all okay? According to the barbarian beast he had tamed, an old woman had taken Su Wan'er away. He wondered if she was doing well now. Cold seduction, a sleepless night. Instead of helping Feng Qi get rid of her inner demons, the trial this time gave him a deeper understanding of the path of martial arts. What was Tao? What is heaven? What is man? In the distance, the roars of beasts were like muffled thunder, spreading out in all directions and not calming down for a long time. The mysterious ball of light in Su Yi's mind was the same as before, emitting a mysterious ancient aura. For the first time, Su Yi sat down and thought about his various fortuitous encounters in this trial. Su Yi found that compared to the vast spirit secret realm and holy artifact secret realm, the spirit Qi in this trial was much more abundant than before. Moreover, this place didn't seem like a dead zone. From the moment he entered to the moment he was forced into the forest, from the forest to the foot of the mountain, the distance seemed short, but it was extremely dangerous. For the first time, Su Yi felt like he was being led by someone. Could it be that all of this is controlled by someone? Or is this a secret realm with divine consciousness? After thinking for a long time, Su-yi decided that he wasn't strong enough, and a lofty feeling of fighting against the heavens arose spontaneously. Only by standing above the world and becoming a peerless expert would he have enough power. If he was strong today, he wouldn't be restrained everywhere in this secret realm. What are you thinking about? A gentle and pleasant voice sounded in his mind. Qinxue, do you have someone you want to protect? Su-yi raised his hand and tapped his chin. Someone I want to protect? My clan is long gone. Ling Qinshue's voice was wooden, and her amber eyes carried a trace of sadness as she said slowly, I'm sorry. Su-yi remembered that when he was fighting the ice and fire double-headed demonic snake, Ling Qinsue had mentioned her hatred for the extermination of her clan. With the explosion of the demon core, the grudges turned into smoke and dust. You seem different, Ling Qinsue said softly. Have I become more handsome? Su-yi's eyes lit up as he asked proudly. No, you're still as shameless as before. Ling Qinsue heard and replied, unhappily. Su-yi laughed and looked at the grass and trees in the distance without saying anything. After a long while, Su-yi asked about Su Tiang's whereabouts. That chicken. Don't worry, I can feel his aura. He's a true demon sovereign and won't be in trouble. Su-yi heard this and felt relieved. All this time, Su-yi had always been worried about that arrogant little chicken. What about you? When will you recover? It's still early. I used too much energy last time, and I'm only recovering my divine consciousness. Ling Qinsue said softly. If your cultivation hadn't increased so much recently, I'm afraid I wouldn't have woken up so early. Ling Qinsue told Su-yi that she was still very weak and needed to borrow Su-yi's strength to consolidate her demon core, recover her soul, and then recover her physical body. None of the three processes could be missing. You should cultivate well first. Only when your cultivation increases greatly will it be more beneficial to me. Su-yi's eyes flashed when he heard that. His gaze was burning as he said softly, Don't worry, Qinsue, I will become stronger as soon as possible. I won't borrow your strength anymore. From now on, I will protect the people I care about. Ling Qinshue's heart trembled. After experiencing the pain of her clan being exterminated, she, who originally had no desires, felt her heart ripple. Then what's your next step? This secret realm is full of mysteries. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Ling Qinsue changed the topic. First, think of a way to get out of this secret realm and see what opportunities there are. We'll make plans after that. Whoosh! Feng Cheater's face was rosy and calm. When she saw Su-yi, she smiled sweetly and said softly, Brother Su-yi, I'm ready. When are we leaving? The sky was slightly bright, and the morning breeze brought the morning fog to shroud the mountain forest. Looking into the distance, a rising sun was slowly rising from the peak of a mountain. The warm sunlight converged with the final ray of dawn. This trial had brought Su-yi far more danger than he had imagined. Su-yi took a deep breath and waved his hand. Let's go. Chapter 1299. The mountain forest was steep, and the ancient trees towered into the sky. The forest halfway up the mountain was covered in dense shade. The first rays of the morning sun shone through the dense leaves of the forest, embellishing the thick moss with spots of light. From top to bottom of the gloomy and quiet mountainside, the lush forest was like a boundless green wave. Under the morning sun, it was covered in a layer of faint golden gauze. The demonic beasts hiding in the forest were quietly lurking in the dark, waiting for their prey to enter the area. The entire forest was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Suddenly, there was a stir in the forest. A man and a woman were shuttling rapidly between the dense ancient trees. They were Su-yi and Feng Qi. A few green leaves fell to the ground and were quickly burned by the fireball, turning into ashes in the air. Fire attribute vitality, qi shrouded Su-yi's body. Multicolored light filled the air, and divine splendor rippled. Su-yi's body was faintly accompanied by the sonorous sound of wind and thunder. The surging vitality qi that was rushing forward carried an impressive pressure. Su Yi used the Fuyao's 100 transformation steps to lead the way while Feng Qi followed closely behind. She was afraid that she would lose track of Su Yi. Zung, zung. Su Yi was like a ball of fire as he shuttled back and forth in the forest. The entire forest and even the sky became extremely hot. The water vapor that had accumulated over the night turned into clouds and drifted away as the ball of fire passed by. In an instant, the raging flames swept across with an impressive pressure. The flowers and plants along the way withered, and the ancient trees were charred. The flames carried a destructive power that could burn all living things to ashes as they rolled toward the mountaintop. Roar! The surrounding barbaric demonic beasts that were rushing toward them were all shocked by Su Yi's demonic and majestic aura. Some of the weaker barbaric demonic beasts immediately prostrated themselves on the ground, trembling and growling softly. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, Su Yi and Feng Qi had already climbed quite a distance. At this moment, Su Yi was operating the primordial origin supreme art with all his strength. The Yuan Qi in his body was vast and boundless, and he wanted to reach the peak in one go. In the blink of an eye, as Su Yi neared the mountainside, the primordial chaos supreme art within his body began to stir. The closer he got to the mountaintop, the more he could feel an invisible and endless pressure surging towards him. It poured into his limbs and bones, making it impossible for him to continue forward. At this moment, the entire mountain peak was filled with an obscure aura. Dark clouds were slowly gathering at the peak. He turned to look at Feng Qi, whose eyebrows were slightly furrowed. Sparkling and translucent beads of sweat slowly slid down her cheeks. Feng Qi was trying her best to move forward. Other than the fact that her speed was slightly strenuous, there were no other signs. Su Yi immediately recalled the scene at the Myriad Sword Conference's Heaven's Ascension platform. Without much time to think, Su Yi's heart was filled with an unyielding spirit. The Yuan Qi energy under his feet was generated, and boundless waves of energy were set off around his body. The Yuan Qi flowed through the wide meridians in his body, causing a strong spatial fluctuation. Then come at me. The obstruction of the mountain peak's energy stimulated Su Yi's unyielding fighting spirit. His fighting spirit was surging, and his lofty aspiration to compete with the heavens was awe-inspiring. Su Yi's thoughts from the previous night made him realize something. For the protection of his heart, he was willing to submit to the heavens and the earth. Unyielding and proud, Feng Qi, who was behind him, was minding her own business as she walked up. She was also shocked by the strange phenomenon around her. Looking at Su Yi's tall and straight back, she immediately sped up. What Feng Qi didn't know was how heavy the pressure on Su Yi's body was. This mountain peak was located at the center of the entire mountain range. It was filled with spiritual energy, and it was the place with the deepest pressure in the entire mountain range. At this moment, Su Yi's body was like the center of gravity of the entire mountain range. Every step Su Yi took to reach the peak was strenuous, and his legs began to tremble slightly with every step. The perilous mountain peak was towering, and the surrounding void was filled with many terrifying auras. Accompanied by dark clouds, the heaven and earth were extremely obscure. Su Yi circulated the Origin Supreme technique to the extreme. The primordial qi in his body was surging, but the invisible pressure outside did not lessen by much. Su Yi's gaze was deep, and a ray of light flashed across his eyes. The current Su Yi was protected by the body of the Vajra, the spirit of the golden dragon, and the endless great void spirit. His heavenly origin demon soul was majestic and powerful. It was far from what the Heaven Ascension platform could compare to. Su Yi's slightly pale face was filled with determination. He gritted his teeth and continued climbing. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Feng Qi slowly realized that Su Yi's speed was gradually decreasing. When she caught up to Su Yi's face was ashen. His body was glowing with energy like a dazzling sun. The four elemental lights on his body alternated. Step by step, he seemed to be struggling, but he still continued climbing. Feng Qi, gaze wavered, and she secretly started circulating her elemental primordial qi to protect Sui. She followed closely behind. Sui looked up. At this moment, his entire body was shrouded in golden light. Feng Qi followed closely behind. Sui could clearly feel that all the crushing pressure was directed at him. Come on, if he couldn't even conquer a mountain peak, how could he trample on the sacred mountain and tear the Blood Yang sect apart? Sui lifted his foot again. At this time, he was already halfway up the mountain. The entire mountain peak was accompanied by dark clouds. The aura fluctuated and began to tremble. An immense pressure shrouded the mountain, and the faint sound of wind and thunder could be heard surging in the clouds. Boom! Thunderous rumbles accompanied the rhythm. As Sui moved forward, the sky shattered as if a heavenly drum was being struck. Faintly, the sky changed color. The rumbles trembled slightly in Sui's golden energy fluctuations. It was inexplicably breathtaking and frightening. Above the void, the boundless energy waves with a monstrous and obscure aura locked onto Sui's body. Sui gritted his teeth and continued to climb with his back straight. His thin body was as straight as a spear. At the same time, Sui no longer held back the primordial qi in his body. The great void divine seas, primordial qi gushed to his limbs and bones. The origin supreme technique continued to circulate. His Vajra body and heaven origin demon soul were also at their peak. Continue. Sui roared in his heart. With the Vajra body, Sui's skin was now crystal clear. His primordial qi enveloped him, and it was as if a divine halo was attached to his body. Sui was like a dazzling ball of light, shining brightly. Feng Qi's heart was also like a monstrous wave. She was very clear that Sui was currently undergoing a huge test. As Sui moved forward step by step, the crystal clear light was also trembling like a ball of flame. The boundless pressure seemed like it would tear Sui apart at any time. Above the sea cliff, the setting sun was as red as blood. The sunset glow piled up in the sky, dyeing the vast expanse of the horizon into a gorgeous purple. Boom! The sky cracked, and heaven and earth began to rumble. The clear sky was trembling nonstop. Buzz! Buzz! The oppressive and obscure aura was like a cover, shrouding the entire sea cliff. In this small space, a large patch of thick dark clouds slowly gathered. The shadow of a 6- or 7-year-old child sat cross-legged. His eyes narrowed as he looked at the lightning that was faintly discernible in the dark clouds. He took a deep breath and said, "Elder Peng, he is already halfway there. Let's get ready to start." Chapter 1300. At the top of the mountain, Sui gradually walked to 2/3 of the mountain peak. A vast pressure from the ancient times enveloped the mountain peak, and the awe-inspiring pressure swept and suffused the mountain range. The sky rumbled, and the monstrous aura caused one's hair to stand on end. The heavenly origin demon soul was suffused with purple light, and the golden dragon remnant soul was dazzling with golden light, and it faintly emitted a dragon's roar. Feng Qi was stunned. The scene before her eyes was too terrifying. Phenomenon. This is the heaven and earth phenomenon that the Grand Elder mentioned. Feng Qi's footsteps stopped, and then she raised her eyes to stare fixedly at Sui. The concern in her eyes was self-evident. This heaven and earth phenomenon was brought about by Sui. Sui caused this heaven and earth phenomenon. Dark clouds covered the sky, and lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. Ling Qianxue, who was inside Sui's body, was even more shocked. Not only was it because Sui, who was at the 9th level of the Origin Void stage, was able to exert such vast energy, but more importantly, it was because she saw the unyielding soul within Sui's body. Ling Qianxue's heart was filled with awe. Ascending the mountain peak had reached a critical moment, and now she could only remain silent, which was the greatest support for the man before her. In the next moment, a deafening explosion that was like the rumbling of heavenly thunder shook the surrounding demon beasts to the point they knelt down, and the living beings of plants and trees trembled incessantly. Only Su Yi's deep and cold gaze was without the slightest fear. At this moment, only Su Yi who was inside could feel the vast and endless pressure. The entire mountain range's heavy pressure seemed to be on his body. Not only was it a crushing pressure on his body, but it was also a shocking and suppressive pressure on his soul. Facing the endless crushing pressure, a crimson light flashed out from between Su Yi's brows, and the Origin Supreme technique in his body flowed endlessly, and a peerless aura that couldn't be suppressed gushed out once again. At this moment, Su Yi was like a supreme king that looked down upon the world, and he had the arrogance to surpass the four seas. The strong wind in the sky blew, and it caused Su Yi's clothes to flutter. 3/4. His gaze blazed like the sun, and the attribute light around Su Yi's body was like a divine halo, and he carried a destructive might as he continued forward. At this time, the mysterious light in Su Yi's body shone brightly like a blazing sun, burning fiercely, making the light around Su Yi's body even more dazzling. The mysterious ball of light rippled and carried with it a domineering and majestic aura as it resisted the pressure of the mountain. Hiss! Only 10 steps left. The void trembled, wind and thunder rumbled, and dark clouds rolled. The sound was deafening, and the faint sound of thunder could be heard endlessly in the sky. It shook violently, like a warning from the gods. Tisk. Feng Qi-er's hair was also blown by the mountain wind, and her eyes were filled with a fiery light. Su Yi strode forward with his head held high. His eyes were filled with courage and determination. Scarlet light filled the air as he walked up step by step. 10 steps, 9 steps, 8 steps. The mountain peak beneath his feet shook under the weight of this young war god. Every step he took seemed to shake the ground, creating a deep ravine. In the blink of an eye, cracks spread out like a spider web. The wind was strong, and the world was shaking. Su Yi's speed was getting slower and slower. The rumbling sound in the dark clouds was endless, like the sound of the heavens. Lightning flashed, and electric arcs surged, as if they would fall on the mountain peak at any time. Su Yi's every step carried boundless pressure. The mountain peak shook, and the void flashed. The invisible pressure had already suppressed Su Yi to the point that his body was shaking, and his face was pale. Only Su Yi, who was under the pressure, knew what kind of willpower he was using to climb to the top. Go! Bam! Su Yi let out a loud roar. His aura was like a rainbow, piercing the sun. The light in his eyes blazed again, and he stomped his foot hard on the ground. 3 steps. At this moment, the sky changed color, and the dark and oppressive aura reached its peak. The roaring thunder was like the final judgment of the gods and devils, sending chills down everyone's spines. Feng Qi-er's delicate body trembled, and her eyes were filled with tears. She clenched her fists tightly. Behind Su Yi, she truly felt how determined Su Yi was. Big brother Su Yi, hang in there. You can do it. Feng Qi-er couldn't help but shout. The wind was chilly, and her voice was drowned out by the sound of thunder and lightning. It spread across the entire mountain peak along with the terrain. Su Yi was still persevering, and the yuan qi under his feet was still surging. However, the corner of Su Yi's mouth began to bleed. The pressure came again, crushing the soul from the depths. It was as if it wanted to directly crush and obliterate the soul. At this moment, Su Yi was already out of breath. However, Su Yi gritted his teeth and continued to move forward step by step. Step by step, his aura became more and more monstrous. Heaven and earth didn't show any signs of weakness and collapsed to the extreme. The pressure was vast and boundless, pervasive and unstoppable. Retreat. Su Yi's body surged with a monstrous aura, causing Feng Qi-er to retreat a few miles. Su Yi's entire body was surrounded by electric arcs. Su Yi vomited blood, and the light on his body dimmed. Su Yi's clothes had long been burned into tatters by the electric arcs. From the inside to the outside, his translucent and gentle jade-like skin began to crack. PFFF. Su Yi vomited another mouthful of blood. Ling Qinshua's heart was in turmoil. She knew that Su Yi was already injured. She knew that this human with such a low cultivation was actually so powerful. His battle intent was surging, and his battle soul was unyielding. Final step. Above the void, the heavenly thunder rumbled. The silver-white electric arcs that were so bright that they were white converged into a ball. It carried a monstrous aura and was extremely terrifying, as if it wanted to destroy all living things. "Don't continue," Ling Qinshuo shouted in her heart. Ling Qinshuo's pretty face was pale, and her eyes were misty. She was afraid to see the scene of Su Yi being suppressed by the lightning, just like how she didn't want to experience the pain of her clansmen dying in front of her again. This is the might of the heavens. It's a warning. Ling Qinshuo's shouts were already swallowed by the astral winds that filled the sky. Between heaven and earth, there was only the sound of killing. At this moment, Su Yi was also injured to the extreme. Su Yi's body also began to bend. Fresh blood seeped out from the cracks on his body, making him look like a man made of blood. Only the Yuan Qi attribute light was still burning brightly. He was like a young killing god with surging killing intent. This final step was like a heavenly moat. It was the greatest test for this young man. What Su Yi didn't know was that on a sea cliff somewhere, there was a mysterious old man whose eyes were locked on him. Because beside the old man, there was another person, a young child, who was experiencing the same lightning suppression as him. At this moment, the wind and clouds surged, and the mountains and rivers trembled. Above the sea cliff, lightning struck down from the dark clouds. The bright electric arcs swept towards the young child like a whirlwind. The endless electric arcs, accompanied by the sharp power of the lightning, seemed to want to engulf the sea cliff and destroy everything. The mysterious old man's eyes lit up. Seeing that both sides were experiencing the monstrous lightning tribulation, he couldn't help but be surprised. "Come on." The surface of Su Yi's body surged with a reddish-gold light. His feet stepped on the mountain peak, and his back was straight. He stood in the middle of the mountain, like a mighty and unparalleled god of war. Roar! The mighty electric arcs converged into a ball, carrying the might of the heavens. Under the boundless and violent suppression, it swallowed the void and collapsed on the young child's body. "Come on." Chapter 1301. On the mountain peak, Su Yi shook his arms, and a domineering and majestic aura suddenly spread out. The last of the great void sea's vital qi in his body surged and gathered on his palms. His eyes revealed a bloodthirsty and ferocious look. In an instant, a mysterious power filled with divine radiance descended from the sky, and deep dragon roars could be faintly heard from the depths of the void. As the dark clouds descended, an incomparably resplendent light shot out from the clouds. The dragon roars were like thunder, incomparably ferocious. At this moment, the vital qi around Su Yi's body glowed brightly. Fire type, wind type, and lightning type vital qi surged violently. His entire body was golden red, and as Su Yi took another step forward, the light became more and more excited. Roar! Boom! In the blink of an eye, the mountain peak and the void trembled at the same time. Golden Dragon suppresses the 9 heavens. An oppressive dragon roar sounded around Su Yi, and a huge golden dragon shadow appeared behind Su Yi. Its divine aura was awe-inspiring, and its resplendent dragon scales shone brightly. Its huge body rolled and swam in the void, swallowing the boundless darkness. In an instant, an extremely terrifying movement shook heaven and earth, and golden light shone, shaking the huge mountain range. Su Yi roared, and the huge dragon shadow, accompanied by a powerful aura, swept towards the peak of the mountain. For no reason, the aura of heaven and earth surged like waves. The mountain peak and trees were like green waves, swaying nonstop under the turbulent aura. The huge golden dragon shadow stretched across the void, and the dragon soared and danced. It was like a dragon roar from ancient times, deeply shaking the souls of those around it. The divine aura suppressed the heavens, and the divine dragon descended, causing the entire heaven and earth to collapse in an instant. The dragon moved its head, and the sky changed color. Thunder rumbled in the dark clouds, accompanied by flashes of lightning. An extremely terrifying aura pressed down on the dark clouds at the peak of the mountain. At the same time, lead white electric arcs descended from the sky, striking the mountain ridge. The entire void trembled, and the vast mountain range shook violently. The entire mountain range had become a huge high-temperature zone, and white fog was constantly emitting. The dragon's aura was awe-inspiring, shaking the heavens. Above the sea cliff, the void rumbled, dark clouds moved, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. Suddenly, from the depths of the void, a resonant phoenix cry rang out from the child's body and pierced through the heavens. A divine and sanctimonious phoenix shadow flew out from the swamp. The phoenix shadow's eyes were blazing like the sun, as if it wanted to incinerate everything in the world. The divine bird flapped its wings and soared into the sky. Crimson flames filled the sky and contrasted with the sky. The flames shot through the sky and went straight for the thunderclouds in the sky behind them. In an instant, the flames on the sea cliff overflowed into the sky. Golden light filled the air, and phoenix cries shook the sky. They clashed with the thunder in the dark clouds. The toddler was like a pocket-sized overlord. The emperor's disdainful might rose to the extreme. The toddler's eyes were like fire, and his might was not inferior to that of an adult emperor. At this moment, he and Sue-Yi were defying the heavens and resisting the heavenly thunder. The divine bird suppressed the heavens, and the divine dragon descended, causing the entire world to blur in an instant. Two shocking might collided against the heavens twice. The might of the heavens surged, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled, and it carried the wind and lightning that covered the sky to the limit. Boom! The mountain peak trembled, and the sea cliff shook violently. Feng was blasted dozens of feet away by this attack. Under such a vast might of the heavens, her heart was not shaken at all. On the other side, the mysterious elder's heart was also trembling endlessly. The dazzling lightning spread across the entire sea cliff, and the smell of burnt reefs could be felt everywhere. Did he resist it? Feng held her breath and clenched her fists. The soles of her feet were trembling, and her eyes were filled with extreme shock. Did he pass? Ling Qinxue pursed her lips tightly. She could feel that Su-Yi's breath was still there. Other than the injuries caused by the lightning and heavy pressure, there were no signs of him being too weak. It was just that this level of collision with the heavens was not as shocking and frightening even when she was going through the tribulation. The dazzling light shrouded the mountain peak, making it hard for people to see clearly. At this moment, every second felt like a year. Boom! Boom! Did he succeed? The mysterious elder held his breath and waited. The surrounding seawater seemed to have solidified, and the birds in the sky also fell into a state of stillness. Everything disappeared without a trace in the woven light. The raging lightning began to dissipate, and the dark clouds began to disperse. The sunset was still bright and beautiful. The sea and sky were soaked in the evening glow, and the silky sky reflected the last touch of red. The wind and waves were calm in the distance, and the stars were gradually emerging. Above the Milky Way, the half-hidden white moon was like a beautiful woman's hook, lifting a bead curtain and looking at the Milky Way. The sky suddenly lit up, and the clouds parted to see the sun. The sunlight was like a beam of light that slanted down from the dark clouds that had yet to dissipate. The crisscrossing rays of light fell on the blue back of the mountain, and it was as if countless giant dragons were spitting out golden waterfalls. It was so dazzling that it made people's eyes dizzy. The mountain's shadow was faintly discernible, and the fog in the forest rose. The mountain's shape gradually became more prominent under the golden sunlight. On the mountain peak, He stood upright with his feet on the ground. His back was straight, and the light around him surged like a supreme king looking down on the world. At this moment, He was outstanding and proud. His gaze was sincere, and his exposed skin revealed a metallic luster under the golden sunlight. He smiled at Feng Qi, who was crawling on the mountainside. "It's a success." Ling Qianxue and Feng Qi's eyes were shocked, and they said in unison. In the vast void, above the sea cliff, there was a bright golden light that shot down and enveloped Yi and the child. When the light shone on them, a deep and distant aura of spiritual energy flowed into Yi's limbs and bones. It flowed along his broad meridians and flowed into the Taishu divine sea. Fog filled the air, and the vast energy of heaven and earth rippled and enveloped the entire mountain peak. The surrounding spiritual energy began to condense and gather. Yi, who was surrounded by spiritual energy, quickly healed the wounds on his body. His qi dynamic was no longer weak, and his expression gradually calmed down. There was a faint glimmer of divine brilliance. At this moment, Yi's golden light was dazzling. When the light dissipated, Yi was no longer weak. The wounds from earlier had all healed, and the Taishu divine sea was full again. Climb to the top, look down on the world, and be the only one. Chapter 1302. On the other side, the toddler was also enveloped in a divine halo. His chubby body turned from an illusory toddler into a phoenix visible to the naked eye. The wings on his body were more plump, and the scorching aura around him seemed to carry an ancient aura. The mysterious elder beside him looked at him with awe and respect. The waves rolled, and the setting sun was like blood, reflecting on the seawater as if it was draped in a thick layer of red gauze. Whoosh! The seabirds seemed to have smelled a dangerous aura on the cliff from afar. They hesitated for a long time, not daring to approach, and finally fled. Birds chirped, beasts roared, and the muffled sound was like thunder. The red light on the phoenix soared into the sky, and flames filled the sky. Gorgeous energy surged out, and the pressure was so great that the reefs below the cliff shattered, and the void seemed to be dazzling. Gravel surged, and the huge energy wave blasted the reefs into the sky like cannonballs. The seawater around them churned even more violently, and white mist rose. As the divine bird's body temperature kept rising, so did the seawater. The monstrous seawater drew an arc in the sky like a water column, shooting toward the phoenix in the form of an arched pillar. Energy surged around the divine bird's body. Like a giant energy storm, it surrounded the water vapor that was shooting toward it. The fierce airwaves surged with an aura that could destroy everything, colliding with the water curtain. The intense heat caused the air to solidify, and the air within a 10-mile radius around the phoenix trembled. Space domain. The mysterious elder's eyes lit up, and he quickly retreated. He stared at the changes and muttered to himself, "The most difficult stage is here. Can you all withstand it?" On the mountain peak, Feng Qi's eyes lit up, and her figure flashed to Yi, who was recovering his strength. "Brother Yi, are you okay?" Yi was surrounded by a divine halo. He looked at the clouds in the sky that were gradually turning red, and his heart skipped a beat. He quickly formed a seal, and the mysterious space opened, bringing Feng Qi in. "It's not over yet. Stay here." From the beginning of the secret realm until now, Yi had been carrying Feng Qi. Now that Yi truly felt a dangerous aura, Yi had no choice but to let Feng Qi hide. Yi knew that the real show was about to begin. The sound of wind and thunder resounded in the sky once again. The white clouds were condensing at a speed visible to the naked eye, forming a thick layer. It was different from the thunderclouds just now. At this time, there were even more clouds. In the blink of an eye, the clouds kept rumbling, and the white clouds gradually turned blood red. The blood clouds continued to pile up, and the entire sky rumbled as if it would be crushed by the blood clouds at any moment. It carried with it the boundless might of an ancient fiend god that had awakened, and it pressed down on the mountain peak. Why? The blood cloud bloomed. Above the void, the two ends of the blood cloud that were hundreds of feet apart suddenly broke apart. The blazing sun was in the middle of the sky. Su-yi calmly stared at the blood cloud. Rays of light flashed across his eyes as the blood cloud split open in the sky. Two incomparably huge golden rays of light shot out. The rays of light carried an unparalleled might that could shake mountains and rivers as they slammed into the mountain peak. The energy storm that the golden rays carried was like two terrifying whirlpools that swept across the surroundings of the mountain range. In an instant, the verdant forest turned into a boundless sea of fire. The entire mountain range was filled with beastly roars and miserable cries. All the barbaric demonic beasts were frightened by the flames that could burn the sky and destroy the world. The sea of fire continued to spread, and the lightning in the forest burned everything into nothingness. The monstrous flames exploded around the mountain range once again. The scorching aura filled the air, and the scarlet light soared into the sky. The entire mountain range started to distort. With the mountain peak as the center, everything turned into a blazing hell. The domineering and majestic blazing heaven fire caused the land on the mountain to shrink rapidly. Rumble. The distorted void was completely shattered by the blazing heaven decimating earth, and the entire mountain range started to collapse from the depths of the ground. At this moment, the vitality in Su-yi's body surged. His hand seals were instantly formed, and the Origin Supreme technique in his body was faintly rising. He stepped into the void, and his face was extremely solemn. Su-yi knew that this wasn't something that he could defeat easily, even if he defied the heavens. Move mountains and fill the sea, burn the sky. Countless thoughts flashed through Su-yi's mind as he stared at the roaring golden rays in the sky. The void rumbled, and the earth trembled. An unparalleled destructive force suddenly rose. Ku! The golden rays dissipated, and a pair of dazzling golden eyes appeared in the midst of the destroyed blood cloud. The entire mountain range was instantly enveloped by the aura of the golden eyes, and the distorted space in the surroundings became extremely hot. Hiss! A divine bird screeched, and its voice was as mighty as the heavenly thunder. The barbaric demonic beasts in the distance all prostrated themselves on the ground in extreme fear. The boundless golden eyes gave people a terrifying feeling, as if they were connected to the primordial universe and everything in the world. It was as if they would fall into a trance if they stared into the eyes of this ancient giant beast. The divine bird looked down at the boundless sea of flames and stared at Su-yi in the mountain range. It was as if it was looking down on the vast world and suppressing millions of ants. Then, Su-yi's mysterious light ball started to burn like a real flame. His eyes were filled with fire, as if they had the abundant energy to communicate with the energy of heaven and earth. Su-yi was in the high-temperature space. He gritted his teeth, and the mysterious energy in his body surged out along with the blazing aura. He was trying his best to resist the aura of the supreme being of heaven and earth. Tisk. The violent energy storm on his body caused the wounds that Su-yi had just healed to start to gush out from the inside out. Thick smoke rose from the surface of his body. Su-yi could clearly feel that the Yuanyang heavenly bone in his body was melting continuously. The monstrous flames that could destroy everything in the world were corroding and melting his body. Kaka! In the great void divine sea, the vast and endless vital chi flooded into his meridians to resist the extremely high temperature from the outside. However, some parts of his body started to crack, and his flesh was badly mangled. The blazing aura was accompanied by the distortion of space. Suyi's body was also melting and twisting bit by bit. The only thing that was still holding on was Suyi's unyielding will. Ah! Suyi roared in his heart. An extremely terrifying aura pierced through Suyi's heart. The mysterious light ball in Suyi's heart shone brightly, as if it had a connection with the divine bird in the sky. It automatically activated the Origin Supreme technique, making Suyi feel slightly better in the high-temperature space. Suyi spat out a mouthful of blood. Suyi's body started to shake. His legs went soft again, and he crawled on the ground. Blood flowed out his mouth. In the midst of the muffled roar, the aura of the raging flames gushed out continuously. The sky-burning wind kept hitting the mountain, and the mountain started to fall apart. From the middle, it started to split and collapse to both sides. Suyi had 1 foot in the crack of the mountain. The endless pain in his body made Suyi unable to bear it anymore. He could only watch as he fell through the crack. Destruction, nirvana, rebirth. A heavy voice that seemed to have transcended the primordial age came out from the golden eye. It was like the sound of heaven, and it brought along a violent spatial whirlpool as it blasted towards the collapsing mountain. The mountain poured down like a flood and merged with the sea of fire. The entire mountain range that was connected to the mountain had already turned into a vast sea of fire. There were no living creatures, and there was no sign of life. I won't die. I won't die. No matter how tough Suyi's mortal body was, it had already reached the point of exploding. Even if he could withstand the influence of the mysterious light ball, he couldn't withstand the constant pressure of the high-temperature space on his body and even the depths of his soul. As if it had received the call of Suyi's unwillingness and tenacity from the depths of his soul, the mysterious space emitted its final light the moment Suyi fell. It spread out from Suyi's body, tightly wrapping around Suyi. After completely releasing the mysterious power of the mysterious space, Suyi continued to sink. Suyi's eyes were as red as the sun, and the corners of his eyes were dripping with blood. The aura around his body was wild and terrifying. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.